Second for the streams to fire up across the internet. If you're not familiar with the program, we do multi-stream. We're on Facebook, we're on Periscope, we're on Twitch, but YouTube always takes just a little bit of time to get moving, and it looks like things are alive and well, so let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and I to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. And so that's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency back down upon this very system with the hope of encouraging some meaningful change. And we are very grateful that you are here and with us today. It is Inauguration Week. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Joe Biden today because today was his first full day in office, and we are learning a lot about him. We've got some angry Canadians. We got some angry maskers. We've got some angry press individuals. And so we're going to just start dissecting it. We also want to take a look at some of his new additions. We're going to look at his press secretary, learn a little bit about her. And the Senate just confirmed Joe Biden's Director of National Intelligence, the DNI. So we're going to learn a little bit about her as well. Fly through a lot today. We've got a lot to cover. Last night when I was after the show, I was sort of scrolling through the news that I had missed, and I was just bookmarking everything. I was like, oh my goodness, there is just so much to cover because it, as is the situation right now, is just a flurry of activity. I mean, he's signing executive orders all over the place. Everybody's just trying to cram a bunch of stuff through while the getting is good, right? Get it while the getting's good. And they're doing that, and you can sort of lose some things in the shuffle. And so we want to help break that down so we can continue to hold them accountable. And there is a lot, and we're not going to be covering the Biden administration for 4 years. I can guarantee you that. It's just a busy week. I would like to next week and beyond sort of open up the program a little bit. We've been covering a lot of politics for a long time, and it's it can become a little bit grating. So today we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to talk about some COVID numbers. We're going to talk about this little spat that's going on with this sheriff out of California. We're also going to talk about the impeachment. Donald Trump's not in office anymore, but Nancy Pelosi has given us some hints that this impeachment debacle is going to continue to move forward. Of course, we're going to follow that along as well. I know that's political, but it's kind of a hot topic right now. So we're going to cover a lot. We're going to move quickly. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to join us every day when we go live at this time. Now is a good time to subscribe to the channel. You can download the podcast. There's an audio version. The link is in the description. And we just want you to connect with us. As another reminder, if you're not familiar with the broadcast, the way that it works is I'm going to go through some news. We're going to look at some primary sources. I forgot to mention Twitter is getting sued for child pornography. So we got that lawsuit. We've got all sorts of stuff. If you want a copy of the slides and the materials, you can get them. They're over on our different platform called Locals. It used to be a private chat server, but they canceled us. They kicked us off. And so what we're doing is we're moving over to Locals a little bit. It's a beautiful platform. A lot of awesome people over there. So go check it out. The website is watchingthewatchers.locals.com. The slides will be available in there. You can get a copy of my book over there. It's for free. All for free. You can get a copy of our impeachment templates. You can get a copy of our existence systems. It's all available over there. So just head on over to locals.com. We'd very much appreciate the support there. And one more reminder, if you want to send any questions or any super chats as I'm going through the broadcast, Miss Faith is right in that room behind me. She's capturing all of those, and she's going to be adding them to the slides. We'll get to those at the end of the program. And that's about it. Thank you so much for being here. So let's get started. I want to start with some reaction. A lot of fun reaction yesterday from sort of a smattering of individuals from all different walks of life, all different parts of the political spectrum. And we're going to go through some of it. Some of it's sort of hilarious, actually really hilarious. So let's get into it, have a little bit of fun to start the program. This first one I want to get to is from CNN's. Now, this one's not particularly hilarious, but we're going to save that one for the end. This one is David Chillane says that the extensions of the lights, of the side lights during the inauguration yesterday are like extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. Do you feel embraced in America? All right, so let's listen to David.
Still some
Chalain.
tinkering going on with the inaugural address, but his aides have made really clear it's not like he's trying to ignore or paper over either what happened at the Capitol 2 weeks ago or what we've been through throughout 4 years of the Trump presidency. And the contrast on display tonight was so stark. I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool, it's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. It was a moment where the new president came to town and sort of convened the country in this moment of remembrance, outstretching his arms. And contrast that with that video you just saw.
Oh, goodness. All right. So there's Joe Biden giving everybody a big hug. Oh, we're not supposed to be hugging anybody right now or shaking hands or any of that stuff, but we're doing it symbolically. We're doing it with light bulbs that are just sort of scattered around the Capitol and the Lincoln Memorial to give us that warm embrace. Didn't Joe Biden have some problems with embracing people for some period of time? Sniffing and, just getting a little bit too close and a little bit too friendly. If we had a real live media, then they would have talked more about that, I think, during the campaign. But that didn't happen. Anyway, so, CNN's obviously still thrilled about this. They're all getting the thrill up their legs, just loving it, every minute of it. But some other individuals throughout the internet are trying to watch this stuff on the White House YouTube channel. And, they found that it's unlisted. So take a look here. This was posted by this guy, Robbie Starbuck, over on Twitter. Says Joe Biden's inauguration video got so many thumbs down now that it's unlisted on the White House YouTube channel. So 4,000 thumbs up, about 399,000 views. And this was posted earlier this morning. 4,000 up, 25,000 down, about 400,000 views, which is just, wild. I mean, we have we have videos on our channel that have more views than that. And I know this was just yesterday, but you would imagine that somebody who got 80 million votes, somebody who has a YouTube channel that has 1.8 million subscribers, you would think that they would get millions and millions of views just, overnight. I'm not sure what it's up to now. Probably not much because they unlisted it because they got so hammered, a lot of downvotes. But the argument there is going to be these are just a bunch of angry Trumpers. Well, that may be true, but wouldn't you think that there would be a lot of very, very thrilled Bideners out there who are going to be counterbalancing that? Where are they? Where is everybody? They weren't there at the inauguration. Now, the excuse for that was, well, it's coronavirus. They weren't allowed to be there. But now there were people down in Florida who were hanging out for Donald Trump when he got there. You would imagine that there would be other parties around the country of just really thrilled Biden Kamala people, but there really hasn't been. And they're not even congregating on the internet. So the excuse has been, well, it's COVID. They're not allowed to be out and about. So why aren't they watching it online? It's because nobody cares. Well, some people care. Some people are very upset about this. And we saw that over the night in Portland and Seattle, massive demonstrations, massive protests that, they're not storming the Capitol building, but they're storming other buildings and they're trying to get involved with the Immigration Customs Enforcement Services. And we're looking like a little bit of a war zone out there in Portland and different parts of Seattle. So this story came over from the New York Times, says, let's go over here. Says protesters in Portland and Seattle shatter windows and light fires. Hours after Biden's inauguration, federal agents in Portland, Oregon, fired tear gas to disperse protesters who declared that the new president, quote, will not save us. And this is a lot of people, right? A couple hundred people looks like there. The article says that they were going and smashed through the windows at a Democratic Party headquarters, marched through the streets, burned an American flag in a strident challenge by anti-fascist and racial justice protesters to the new administration of President Biden, who promised reforms they declared, quote, won't save us. So in Portland, Oregon, there were lines of federal agents in camouflage now working under the Biden administration. These aren't Trump people anymore. And what did they do? They blanketed the streets with tear gas and unleashed volleys of welt-inducing pepper balls as they confronted a crowd that gathered outside the Immigration and Customs Enforcement building near downtown. Some of the crowd later burned a Biden for President flag in the street as well. Another protest over in Seattle, same thing. They saw dozens of people push their way through streets, chanting not only about ICE, but many other issues that roiled America's streets last year. No cops, prisons, borders, president, said one banner, while another proclaimed the conflict over racial justice, policing, immigration, corporate influence was, quote, not over merely because a new president had been inaugurated. So, I remember over the summer, we covered a lot of these protests and everybody was blaming Donald Trump. You're responsible for these things. Why don't you come out there and just wipe out these protesters with the tear gas, with the pepper spray, with the rubber bullets, and on and on and on. And now it's Joe Biden. He's in charge now, and these things sprang up as a result of his inauguration. I don't know if these people were incited by anything. I mean, did Joe say something that might have incited them into doing something? He talked a lot yesterday, signed a lot of orders, did a lot of things, and now he was sort of arguably inciting something that might have happened in Portland or Seattle. And we know already that because of the Democrats, they set the standard when they impeached Donald Trump, when they used incitement as the basis for the impeachment proceeding. We know that it's pretty easy to impeach somebody. And so if you can just connect something that somebody said to something bad that happened in the universe, then there you go. That's enough for an article of impeachment. By the way, if you're looking for a template, if you want to impeach Biden or anybody, feel free to go grab those. They're available over on our Locals platform. So it's very easy to just impeach. And, well, we'll see what the media has to say about this. Let's take a look at some of the video footage that we have clipped out from the New York Times, sort of clipped around. You can see it looks pretty bad, right? It looks pretty aggressive. Joe Biden, is bringing the hammer on these people. If they got the order from him, it was his, administration. So presumably the ICE was communicating to somebody now who was connected to the Biden administration. They're, I don't know. I haven't seen anything of them trying to connect this to Trump or anything like that, but it's just only a matter of time, right? Let's take a look at what happened in Portland. So I think you're hearing beanbags, you're hearing, paintball-type weapons, guns. You're seeing the tear gas. They got a medic, it looks like. That's nice. Burning a Biden flag. Oh, no. So, all right. So there you go. Kind of looks like an insurrection to me, right? Kind of looks like exactly what we saw on the 6th over in Capitol Hill, but I'm not really hearing much about that. I'm not hearing that Antifa needs to be wiped off the face of the earth. I'm not hearing anything like that from any of the Democrats who sort of made those same claims about Parler and Donald Trump being on Twitter and, all of that sort of a lot of dangerous rhetoric out there, but it's only if you are a political opponent of the Biden administration. Thus far, it's only been 24 hours, so maybe they'll come out and they'll say, we got to get rid of Antifa, or we got to address this somehow. But I don't know. Currently, the police looks like they are addressing this with haste. So we'll see how that continues to go. Obviously, a very big group of individuals not particularly happy with Joe Biden. Now, we talked yesterday about some individuals who are just crying tears of joy. Andrew Sullivan was one of them. We had 2 individuals that we found off Twitter. There was about 1,000 other ones where people were saying, I'm literally crying tears of joy. I think Rashida Tlaib said, I can feel the energy, the negative energy just leave my body. Oh, it's so good that Donald Trump is not in there anymore. And I was thinking, okay, that's kind of, all right, I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you're crying tears of joy. That's great. We went through the magazine cover that literally had Joe Biden sort of ensconced as a saint along with the media with angel's wings. And it's just getting a little bit much, right? And so now let's take a look at the other side of the spectrum. You got really, really happy people, and you've got some really, really concerned people. And I was watching this last night, and I just got to give you a brief warning. I was laughing so hard, and I watched it again this morning, and I was laughing so hard. I'm going to do my best not to die in this clip. Now, sometimes you hear something that just hits you just it rings your bell, right? You go, all right, that's pretty good. And this is the experience that I went through. I'm somebody who also does a show. There are times when I come on here, and it would be nice to just kind of be able to do what he does here. He's got a tremendous amount of freedom, and it's just a wild scene. I don't agree with all of his statements here, but I want you to watch this and just feel the raw energy. Of course, if you have not already seen this, I am talking about the one and only, the great Alex Jones. Alex Jones over at InfoWars. He said this today. Alex Jones was calmly and with restraint shares his thoughts on what's going on. This was posted over by Roosh, sort of a born again, I think, religious person who used to be part of the manosphere back in the day. So he posted that over on Twitter if you want to go give him a follow. And then this was Alex Jones reacting to the Biden administration and the inauguration yesterday.
I mean, it's over. You understand? Your only shot you've got is realizing that we're screwed. Your candy-ass church isn't going to do it. Your candy-ass boss isn't going to do it. We're a trained group of monkeys in this country. We're not what Americans used to be. We're not rugged individualists. We don't stand up for the Bill of Rights and Constitution. We're a joke, okay? And so they got people like Brian Stelter up there saying shut down all of his competition on TV now. He thinks he owns you. Jeff Zucker thinks he owns you. These are bad people, okay? So I've done the best job I can. And I'm not bitching at the crew or you or anybody. I'm just saying it's hard for me to get up here and do a normal show when we have a group of corporate criminals literally gang raping us. I mean, if we ever beat this thing, it'll be in the history of like these people were Hitler. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's not like, oh, we're getting there. It's bad. Things are out of control. They've just begun. They're going to take your pension funds. They're going to bankrupt. They're going to cut the power off, the oil off. They're going to open the borders. It's over, man. It's over. It's all gone. It's all over. They're going to activate the Boogaloos, FBI, ADL, terror forces. They're going to start blowing everything up. Then they're going to come arrest all the patriots. The idiots will cheer it. Then they're going to shut your power off. They want you starving in the street. They want to rape your wife. They're Bolsheviks. They're Jacobins. It's all
right. I got to be careful with that because, it's Alex Jones, and I think he's already been deplatformed. But listen, sometimes the guy is right. And, I don't agree that they're going to come and rape your wife. I'm not saying that we're all being gang raped by corporate capitalists or anything like that. But you can understand when he says, hey, our nation is sort of a bunch of trained monkeys. Now, I think that's pretty generous. Largely I've said on this channel that, we're all, myself included. All right. We all think we're very sophisticated and we can, just sort of make sense of the world and analyze things and come up with solutions and reason our way through stuff. We've been trying to reason our way through COVID. It's been a year and they still don't know what the hell they're doing. So, the analogy I always use is big, dumb farm animals, which is a little bit lower tier than what Alex is saying, that we're all a bunch of trained monkeys. So, that's one side of the aisle, and you're getting just a wide variety of different responses and opinions. But Alex Jones is, just outstanding. I mean, the freedom that guy has, I sort of admire his ability to just go and just tell us how you feel, Alex. We're losing everything. So, pretty fun. Not particularly wrong in my mind. I think that there is a very dangerous thing that's happening right now as it relates to free speech, and we're going to be, really, really focused on that. So a little bit of fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Maybe not. Maybe that was a little too close for home to you. There are probably a lot of people out there also who say, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. I am losing everything. I'm losing my business, losing my job, losing my livelihood, losing my family, losing my freedoms, losing all of it. And there's some truth to that. So Alex Jones, everybody, let's switch gears. All right, let's meet some people in the administration. We have a new press secretary. Press secretary is somebody who we're going to get to know a lot of over these years, because what they do is they spin everything for the administration. That's just what they do. That's their job description. Okay. Now people say that they're supposed to go out there and tell the truth and be honest and all that. And that's just a bunch. Okay. That sounds good. That would be nice, but that is just not what this role is for. All of Donald Trump's people were there to spin what the administration was doing. This woman, whose name is Jen Psaki, I think, Jen Psaki. I don't know if you say the P or not yet. I haven't picked that up quite yet, but this is who she is. Her name is Jennifer Renee Psaki, and she is an American political advisor, 34th House press secretary in the Biden administration. She was a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State and held various senior positions and communication roles in the Obama White House, right? So just a sort of a transplant from the Obama administration. We all were saying this is going to be Obama's third term, and it's looking like it is. She is, looks like she's married. She was 42 years old, born in Stamford, Connecticut. She's a working mom of 2 small humans, most days communicating, and so on. So her website, of course, buildbackbetter.gov. You can go follow her on Twitter if you want to see what she has to say. Now, some interesting things going on during the first press secretary briefing yesterday over at the White House. This is Jen Psaki, who is who's being asked a very important, very pertinent question about Air Force One. Well, now that Trump's not in office anymore, is the president going to change, and I mean President Biden here, is the president going to change the color scheme on Air Force One, which I think looks pretty great, actually. I think it's much better than that sort of lighter baby blue. It's a real dark navy, deep blue. It's gorgeous, looks really crisp and clean. And the first thing they want to know on day one is Biden going to change Air Force One? And listen to Jen, this press secretary. She's got a little bit of attitude here, which, it's not bad. Here we go. Here's Jen.
Later note, will he keep Donald Trump's Air Force One color scheme change?
This is such a good question. I have not had the opportunity to dig into that today, given the number of executive actions, orders, the inauguration, a few things happening. I will venture to get you an answer on that, and maybe we can talk about it in here tomorrow.
A lighter note, will he...
All right, so she says, well, like all of the other important things that we're doing, maybe you shouldn't ask stupid questions like that. Okay, we just signed like 200,000 executive orders, and why are you asking about that? So sort of like, she could have just said, no, we haven't thought about that. But she sort of, really sort of beefed that up a bit and kind of pushed it back on the press. Now, I think you're going to see a lot of this in the upcoming years. You're going to see this sort of fake rift between the administration and the press. I mean, in my mind, even during the Obama years, the press was just lobbing softball after softball after softball, and it just got so tiresome. Very little accountability, very little pressure from the press, and it was sort of just like a love fest. So, what you'll see here is they want you to make believe like they're getting tough questions. Oh gosh, we're getting all these hard questions. It's so difficult. Thanks for holding us accountable. Thanks for making sure we're doing our job. We love the press. Donald Trump said the press is the enemy of the people. They're going to come in and they're just going to play this little game of patty cake with one another, and they're going to feign like it was this big brouhaha all the time. And it's really, we know that they're all working together. They were working to get him in there. They're not going to do much to damage him while he's there. And they're certainly going to support him when there's a challenge or a threat at the next election season. So that's going to be the new press secretary. I think we have another clip from her later on. We also yesterday learned that the Senate confirmed a woman by the name of Avril Haines as the director of national intelligence. Major vote, 84-10. She got passed in. 10 Republicans voted no. And so you can sort of see here, we've got Paul, we've got Lee, Holly, we've got Ernst, Cruz, Braun, Blackburn. So I would say sort of the further right senators are all in there voting no, but everybody else voted yes. So we have a new director of national intelligence, and ODNI, they said here on Twitter last night, we're excited to welcome Avril Haines as our nation's 7th director of national intelligence. And this is a big position. The director of national intelligence is the director of national intelligence. I mean, it is what it sounds like. They are monitoring and integrating all of the different intelligence agencies from the CIA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, I think even Department of Justice, Treasury, all of them have intelligence wings. And so they're all sort of within the confine. All of the special forces have special wings and all of that. So it's a very, very big position. And now we're going to know who it is. She is succeeding John Ratcliffe. You remember John Ratcliffe from the Trump years. She was the Deputy National Security Advisor during the Obama administration. So once again, just another retread from the Obama years. She was also the 4th Deputy Director of the CIA. So a lot of intelligence background, also a part of the Obama years. And she was just sworn in, so passed by the Senate. So age 51, Democratic Party, went to Johns Hopkins. We went University of Chicago, Georgetown, and so on. So she's going to be managing that. And one of the outstanding things that we never got an answer to was from that executive order that Donald Trump had issued into law around 2018. The question was, is that ever going to be released? Are we going to see that? And that executive order, if you recall, was the one where he said after an election, within 45 days, so if the election was on November 3rd, it was supposed to be done by December 18th. It never got done, but it was this report that all of our intelligence agencies were supposed to generate so that it could basically do a threat assessment on what foreign powers did as it relates to the election. And so that report never, I've not seen it. We heard Ratcliffe before he left say that they were sort of suppressing Chinese influence and all this stuff, but no real formal report. It got delayed. There were some disagreements between the CIA and some different other intelligence agencies about what to include in the report and how to report it. And it never got released. And so now that we have a new DNI, I'm not sure that we're ever going to see it. We're just going to have to wait and see. We also have another story where apparently one of the first things that Joe Biden did is really kind of get into it with the Canadians, our Canadian brothers and sisters up in the north. And it looks like that the Keystone XL pipeline, the one that was a pretty important issue, like this would have been pretty important to know prior to the election, right? Because we were talking about Pennsylvania, we were talking about the Rust Belt, a lot of jobs are surrounding this, a lot of energy jobs and construction jobs and so on. And we never really got an answer. What's your position on fracking? What's your position on the pipeline? Just kind of, we're going to investigate it, right? Well, it's going to be canceled. So Canada, welcome to the party. Everyone else is getting canceled. It's just part of the deal, my friend. This is just how it goes. Sorry. So it is something that is disappointing to the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He says he's disappointed in it, and in particular, as a result of Biden's plans to cancel and revoke the permit. Said in a statement issued following the inauguration, Trudeau said he spoke directly to Biden about the $8 billion project in November, and other Canadian officials made the case in favor to high-level officials of the administration. We welcome the president's commitment to climate change, but we're disappointed to acknowledge the president's decision to fulfill his election campaign promise on the Keystone XL. Trudeau noted that Canada is the single largest supplier of energy to the U.S. Workers in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and across Canada will always have our support. TC Energy said it was suspending construction of 1,280-mile pipeline and warned thousands of union workers would be laid off if Biden doesn't change course. So they're already, it looks like, building this thing. Biden signed an executive order revoking the permit, which is just insane to me, at which he issued 3 other presidential directives. So, it's very curious to see what the courts are going to do with this stuff. If you're already in the process of building something, then there's a concept in the law called detrimental reliance. I'm sort of relying on something, and then it was detrimental to me. I was relying on you to allow us to continue to build this stuff, and we started working on 1,200 miles of pipeline, and then you just come in with the stroke of a pen, the whole project's dead. I would presume that they've been working on this thing for the last 4 years, the entire time Trump was in office. So they can just come in, the stroke of a pen, the whole project's dead. Are the courts going to do anything about that? Because I'm sure there were contracts and agreements and payments and everything's in motion. So now what happens? You lose all that stuff? The federal government's going to take away your ability to engage in something. They got to give you just compensation, right? It's part of the Constitution. If they want to come and take your house, they got to pay you for it. It's called eminent domain. They can come and take it, but they got to pay you for it. And the Constitution says they got to offer you just compensation. They can't pay you, a penny for your property. They got to make sure that it's market value, and there's a lot that goes into it. So this is a major, major taking by the federal government of a project. And we're going to see where that goes. Another individual from Canada, not particularly happy about it, says, as friends and allies, we are deeply disturbed that one of the POTUS' first actions was to rescind a presidential permit for the Keystone pipeline. He says, that's not how you treat a friend and ally, my statement. Big, long statement. I'm not going to read it all, but he does go through and say, it's our most important ally. Deep economic ties. We have $100 billion worth of exports. As friends, we're disturbed. My thoughts are 2,000 people lost their job today. The State Department's own exhaustive analysis under Obama's administration concluded that Keystone XL would actually reduce emissions, as the alternative will be to move this energy by higher emitting and less secure rail transport. So it goes on, that's not how you treat an ally. We're going to continue to fight for this stuff. And it's one of those things. I think even before the election took place, like I said, I don't know much about the pipeline issue and the Canadian oil or the Pennsylvania, fracking or much of that stuff. I live in Arizona. We don't have any of that stuff here, right? So this is sort of a local issue that I think is going to be very detrimental to certain parts of the country and less so to others, until you consider the fact that, well, if they're going to be transporting this energy into the United States from the shale reserves up in Canada, then it might impact the whole country, right? It might impact the whole world if we can't have the necessary oil transported to meet our needs. Energy prices are going to go up, and I think that's sort of the intention here. It's to jack those prices up so that the use of oil becomes less prevalent, and you have to go to these alternative energies, which up until this point in time have been largely, good trending in the right direction, but I'm not sure that they're ready yet to be a replacement for oil. So, sorry, Canada, that's how it works here in America. You just, with the stroke of a pen, gone. So, all right, let's change gears again. Another executive order signed by Joe Biden. This one involves the wearing of masks. And so this one's pretty interesting. Executive order on protecting the federal workforce and requiring mask wearing. This is an excerpt directly from the executive order, section 1 on policy. It is the policy of my administration to halt the spread of the disease COVID-19. Got it. Accordingly, to protect federal workforce and individuals interacting with the federal workforce, and to ensure the continuity of government services, on-duty or on-site federal employees, on-site federal contractors, and all other individuals in federal buildings and on federal lands should all wear masks, maintain physical distance, and adhere to other public health measures as provided in CDC guidelines. Now, very interesting language here. So you see this word here, should. Okay, should. They should wear all masks, which is one of those words that is irrelevant in law. I mean, I shouldn't say it's irrelevant, but it's sort of inconsequential. Like, what does it mean? Am I required to wear it or not? Okay, in law, we typically will distinguish between may and shall, right? May is discretionary. You have the option. On federal lands, employees may wear masks, right? It's optional. If you're not wearing a mask, okay, no problem. Because you may not. The other word is shall. On federal lands, shall all wear masks. That is mandatory. That's no argument about it. No discretion. You're obligated to wear a mask because it says shall. Here, we have the word should, right? We got should there. And that means, well, kind of whatever the hell you want it to mean. And so the goal here now is to look at the standards that Joe Biden and his administration are setting on this mask stuff. It is the policy to halt the spread. We're going to rely on the best available data. Such measures include wearing masks. All right. So wearing masks. Great. So we know that wearing masks is important to that. And that's the standard that we want to hold them accountable to. Now, wearing masks on all federal lands. Remember what this is all about. This is about virtue signaling to the rest of the country, saying, look how much I care about COVID. I care about you. I care about me. I care about grandma. I care about everybody. I'm wearing a mask. And I'm not opposed to wearing masks. I wear a mask very regularly. But it's one of those things where I'm not under the impression or the misconception that wearing a mask is going to cure COVID and protect me for the rest of my eternity, for the rest of my life. It's one of those things that I do it to be polite. I do it because it sort of helps other people feel calm and safe. I don't want to be a provocateur and give people panic attacks out there. So I just wear the stupid mask, right? But I don't, I'm not a scientist. I've heard arguments both ways about it being effective, it being ineffective. It makes sense to me just from a sort of physical perspective that if people have more stuff covering their face, they're not going to be, spreading spittle around and all that stuff. So, all right, I'll wear the stinking mask. I'm not the president, and I'm not the person who needs to go out there and sort of be the lead, the role model on this stuff. And I'm also not the person who put in law that says this is the policy of the administration. That's Joe Biden. Here is Joe Biden yesterday at the Lincoln Memorial on federal land, breaking his own policy, one that he literally just signed into law. Here's an image of it and a video I think we have. So they're playing music outside. There he is, federal land, no mask. Okay, now, so enough of that. So you know where he is. And apparently, according to the video, he was, here's the whole thing. I confirmed that there was a PA speaker that was there the whole time, the whole feed. He was indeed hearing Yo-Yo Ma's performance as it was being aired. He wore the mask immediately prior to this and put it back on as soon as he finished his TV hit. And so there was another image of him. There was a TV crew following him around, and he didn't have his mask on the whole time, right? And apparently, according to this individual, he put it on before, put it on after, and so on. But this is what I'm talking about. They pass the rules for everybody else, but they exempt themselves. We've seen this time and time again, whether it's Nancy Pelosi in the hair salon, whether it's Gavin Newsom having dinner with his, friends. Everybody is exempt from the rules except for you and I. We all, I have had friends call me and say, there are cops who are coming by my business. What should I do? They're here asking about masks and things. But Joe Biden can get away with it even after he writes his own executive order. Now, I understand what people might be saying. Oh, well, he's the president and everybody there gets tested for COVID and he's got high security. So it's really not for him. It's more of a symbolic thing. And it's like, no. If he signs it and he's making this proclamation, he should be the first one to follow it more than anybody else, right? It's if you're a good leader of a good organization, you put your money where your mouth is. You go out there and follow the rules that you enact. And if you've ever worked for somebody who tells you to do something, but they don't do it themselves, you lose respect for that person. You say, well, that's weird. Kind of a double standard here. Why are they allowed to do that and I'm not allowed to do this, right? And so in my mind, this is sort of standard operating procedure for this administration thus far. They're going to tell us a bunch of things that we should be doing, and then they're going to do just a little bit different. They're going to do whatever they want. And this is a good standard. Okay, I've been telling you this about the Bidens. We're going to ask them to define what their standards are. What are the rules that you expect to operate by? And then we're just going to hold them accountable when they break their own rules. This happened like in the middle of 3 hours. Sign an executive order, goes over to the Lincoln Memorial, has this fake look. Oh, wow, how incredible. Joe, you've been in Washington for 37 years, apparently. And, have you never been to the Lincoln Memorial? I understand this is a showpiece. This is a big day. I know it's Inauguration Day. Congratulations, you're the president. But how about following through on your own rules? We're going to see this time and time again. So just get ready for it. Now, what did that press secretary that we had met, Miss Psaki, what does she have to say about it? Well, excuses. Here, though, we do have Peter Doocy, who is actually asking a hard question about this entire mask scandal. Here he
focused
is.
on doing his job to get the work done for the American people. Go ahead.
Why weren't President Biden and all members of the Biden family masked at all times on federal lands last night if he signed an executive order that mandates masks on federal lands at all times?
At the inaugural...
At the Lincoln Memorial, yes.
I think, Steve, he was celebrating an evening of a historic day in our country, and certainly he signed the mask mandate because it's a way to send a message to the American public about the importance of wearing masks, how it can save tens of thousands of lives. We take a number of COVID precautions, as you know, here in terms of testing, social distancing, mask wearing ourselves, as we do every single day, but I don't know that I have more for you on it than that.
But as Joe Biden often talks about, it is not just important the example of power, but the power of our example. Was that a good example for people who are watching who might not pay attention normally?
Well, Steve, I think the power of his example is also the message he sends by signing 25 executive orders, including almost half of them related to COVID. The requirements that we're all under every single day here to ensure we're sending that message to the public. Yesterday was a historic moment in our history. He was inaugurated as president of the United States. He was surrounded by his family. We take a number of precautions, but I think we have bigger issues to worry about at this moment in time.
All right, so there you have it. Not bad, pretty impressive, right? She's able to just sort of just navigate through the truth pretty easily, not even missing a beat. Well, there's technically, but there's more bigger issues. It's historic. It's Inauguration Day. He's with his family. Blah 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 blah. All right. Well, how about for all of the other people in the country that also have important things going on in their lives? Are they allowed to just sort of kind of play loose with the rules. Somebody's having a baby, somebody's, having an operation somewhere. Can we go to the hospital? Can we see him? Can we just sort of skirt some of these rules? Can we get together for weddings and funerals and all this stuff? No, you can't, because everything's on lockdown. And I have heard horror stories of people losing their loved ones in hospitals because of the rules, because they follow the rules, the COVID rules. And so, this is something that just trickles downstream. And if Joe Biden's going to be breaking the rules at the top and expecting the rest of us to follow them, that's a pretty big double standard. And so we'll continue to hold him accountable for those. All right. Speaking of COVID, so the World Health Organization released some new data yesterday. And, a big part of me was wondering what's going to happen with this COVID death count. Remember, all during Trump's, I'm going to do that a lot. All during Trump's administration, we were looking at this rolling death count every day. You go to CNN, go to Washington Post, 100,000 dead, 200,000 dead, 300, 400,000 dead. And I'm not poo-pooing that, right? I mean, that's a catastrophic number of people who have died from COVID. The point of my rant on this one is that they were doing it almost like a scoreboard, and they're just saying Donald Trump was responsible for these. I have seen it so many times on Twitter. It's just like, okay, guys, like, you understand the shoe's going to be on the other foot here very soon. I see people on Twitter still today going, Trump's responsible for 400,000 dead. Okay, well, Trump was only a part of COVID for like 9 months, maybe 10, 11 months if you want to expand it up to January, right? He's 1 year maximum. Because we started learning about it in January 2020. National lockdown happened on March 13th or March 15th of 2020, and Trump's gone. So Joe Biden now is going to be in office for the remaining 4 years. And so that death toll, if I would guess, would be significantly higher than 400,000. He's got 4 years of it. Now, of course, America is going to get vaccinated and so on, but there are a number of other permutations, mutations. There's multiple different viruses. There's a California virus now. There's I think there was another strain in England, and there's just, they're mutating just like viruses do. And now there's going to be sort of a conversation about whether the vaccine still provides additional immunity, and on and on and on. And so COVID is not going away. I've been saying this, to a lot of people in my life. Just get used to this. I think that this is going to be how life is for the foreseeable future, and I'm hopeful that it's not, but I'm not particularly optimistic about that. I think this is something we're going to be dealing with. So my question was, well, how is Joe Biden going to deal with this? How are they going to do such a better job than Trump? Because Trump got a lot of criticism for COVID, and I think you could even say that he lost the election because of COVID. I mean, the economy was roaring. Everything was humming along. If things had stayed on track, I think it probably would have been a landslide victory for him, but it didn't. And everything changed. And a lot of his criticism was about his response to COVID. And so the question was, like I said, how is this going to change? How are they going to make COVID look better now? Well, literally, the World Health Organization just released new guidance for testing literally yesterday, the day of the inauguration. I got this information over from Ethical Skeptic. Now, once again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how this works intricately, right? If you're expecting me to sort of give you a legal analysis on this, I'm not a doctor. But this guy, Ethical Skeptic, is well versed in this stuff, and he answers some questions, and I have a copy of the World Health Notice itself. So let's go through it. But again, this is not medical advice. Let's just take a look at the pattern that we're seeing. Ethical Skeptic posted on Twitter, the PCR positive, and we're going to learn what that is here in a quick minute. It's no longer equal to COVID. So if you do a test and you come back as PCR positive, so this means you get a positive test result, they're saying according to the World Health Organization, according to their guidance on this, it's no longer equal to COVID. You are not COVID now unless you get a second test to confirm it and you're presenting clinical symptoms. Okay, so we have a number of different things going on. We've got one, you got to get your first test. You got to be PCR positive. That's number one. Then you also have to get a second test to confirm it. And then you also have to present clinical symptoms. We shall see what the net impact of this is. So contrast that with what we had previously. You go, you get a test, it's positive. That's it, right? You just get counted in the numbers. They just throw, you go over to your local health department. They send that stuff over to the federal government, and you get added into the numbers. But now it's much harder to qualify to be in that bucket of positive tests. Now what you need is three things. You need two confirmatory tests, one that sort of opens the question, another one that confirms it, and you also have to be presenting clinical symptoms. This is where the article comes from. This is where the document is. The World Health Information Notice for the IVD, and we can see here what they're talking about is nucleic acid testing. So that's NAT technologies that use PCR. So that's polymerase chain reaction for detection of SARS-CoV-2. And so this was just drafted on January 13th, and it was released yesterday on January 20th, right? That's Inauguration Day. So they were kind of hanging on to this thing until this particular day happened. The purpose of this notice is to clarify information previously provided by the World Health Organization. The notice supersedes other World Health Organization information, and it requests users to follow the instructions for use. The instructions for use when interpreting the results for specimens that are tested using this methodology. So it's basically saying, we need you to count this a little bit differently now. Right? And here is what Ethical Skeptic highlighted for us. He says, where the test result do not correspond with the clinical presentation, a new specimen should be taken. So this is saying that you need to show some physical symptoms. Clinical presentation is the idea that you're sick, right? The clinician can see it. You're showing symptoms in the presentation. And they're also saying that most PCR assays are indicated as an aid for diagnosis. Therefore, healthcare workers must consider any result in combination with timing, sampling, specimen type, and all of these other things. Clinical observations, patient history, confirmed status of any context, epidemiological information. So they're sort of narrowing the positivity net. The previous way that they counted these results was counting everybody. Okay, now it's much more difficult to be positive according to the World Health Organization, according to Ethical Skeptic, according to the World Health's own documents, right? Other things now other boxes need to be checked before it's going to be counted as a COVID case. So you can see just how easy the numbers are going to shrink if this is implemented, if doctors are using this. Because now they're going to say, well, your first test came back, you got to go get another test. And if you're not even showing any symptoms, doesn't count anyways. You could have two positive tests, but unless you're sick, it's not enough. So that overall pool of COVID is going to be shriveled up dramatically. And what's the Biden administration going to say? Well, it's because we passed the masks. Hello. We passed the mask mandate. That's why all these numbers are going down. If Donald Trump would have just passed a mask mandate, then everything would be better. But he didn't. We did. Even though the mask mandate coincides with a redefining of how to calculate COVID cases. Pretty clever stuff. Ethical Skeptic was responding to some skeptics. He says, do I understand COVID is not COVID unless a second test confirms it? And he says the guidance concatenates, don't even know what that word is, conditions. It is COVID if the first test is positive, the second test is positive, and the clinical evaluation is positive. So 1, 2, and 3. He says, however, it offers permissive to not have to do all of this based on physician judgment. So it's sort of discretionary. The physicians don't actually have to do all of those things. If they do a first test and they say, yeah, you're sick, you've definitely got it, the first test comes back positive, then that's enough. But it is giving them guidance to do ands, not ors. Okay, these are ands. Also says they're talking about weak positives. So this was Zeev Saraski. They're talking about weak positives, not positives. Don't know about the U.S., but weak positives were pointed to secondary tests here for ages. And he says, no, we report positives at CT 40 to 45, depending upon the state, and with only one test. Okay, so they're not really requiring a second test, according to the Ethical Skeptic. So the whole game's changing a little bit. How they're counting numbers, how they're enforcing testing, it's all going to change, and it's going to look a lot better for Joe Biden than it did for Donald Trump, just based on calculations. All right, so here is some more information on the COVID stuff. Now, a big issue here, or a big part of Biden's campaign leading up to this time, was that they're going to just roll out a massive number of vaccines. They're going to just get a ton of people vaccinated. And the number that we've been hearing from Joe Biden specifically was, well, we're going to get 100 million vaccines administered in our first 100 days. And you go, all right, well, that's I think like over a quarter of the American population. We got maybe 370 million people here. All right, it's a pretty good number, right? It's pretty big. That would be impressive. Yeah, but the Trump administration has basically already got that underway right now. Biden saying that he says Biden saying Trump vaccine rollout has been a dismal failure, says his goal is to administer 100 million doses in 100 days or 1 million per day. In the last week, 912,000 doses of the vaccine were administered per day, according to Bloomberg's tracker. Just yesterday alone, 1.6 million doses yesterday. The rolling average, 912,000. Okay, so that's already been met. Trump already got that done. According to Bloomberg, an average of 912,497 shots were recorded each day for the last week. Yesterday alone was 1.6 million. All right, so already exceeding that. A reporter asked Biden a question about that, and here's his response.
Mr. President, you set the goal at 100 million vaccines in 100 days. Is that high enough? Shouldn't you set the bar higher? That's basically where the U.S. is right now.
When I announced it, you all said it's not possible. Come on, give me a break, man.
Mr.
It's
President,
a good start. 100 million. Thank you.
All right, so if you couldn't hear that, the reporter said, you set the goal at 100 million vaccines in your first 100 days. Is that bar high enough? And he said, when I announced it, you said it's not possible. Come on, give me a break, man. It's a good start. 100 million. So, all right, well, that's great. You just basically have to keep doing whatever Trump and his people were doing. You're going to hit your number. You're welcome. All right, so that's COVID stuff. Let's talk about some sort of a little bit of problems with some free speech going on. Been talking a lot about that. Here's John Brennan. John Brennan, if you don't remember, was part of the intelligence community, I think over at the CIA. And he said that they, in the Biden administration, are really moving quickly to come and sort of limit the ability to say certain things. This is him yesterday on MSNBC, and he's talking about, of course, the extremists, but he's also talking about, libertarians? What? All right, here he is.
Well, I was thinking today that this is the most relaxed I've been in the course of many inaugurations I've watched, because I'm not responsible for it. But I can tell you that when I was in the government, I had white knuckles because of the nature of the threats. But it's so much more difficult today because of what we have seen, not just over the last 2 weeks, but that certainly has riveted our attention, but because of this growth in polarization in the United States and domestic violence in white supremacist groups. So I know, looking forward, that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of the country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians. And unfortunately, I think there has been this momentum that has been generated as a result of, unfortunately, the demagogic rhetoric of people that's just departed government, but also those who continue in the halls of Congress. And so I really do think that the law enforcement, Homeland Security, intelligence, and even the defense officials are doing everything possible to root out what seems to be a very, very serious and insidious threat to our democracy and our republic.
Yeah, libertarians using a lot of demagogic language, and they are a threat to democracy, a literal political party in the United States that was on the ballot this last election. Okay. Libertarians are using very dangerous language, and they're a threat to democracy. So you see how this works? It starts with the extremists, then it goes to the white supremacists, then it goes to the religious extremists, and so on and so on and so on, until you just get down to just regular vanilla libertarians who are a threat to American democracy. So very, very bizarre stuff. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the impeachment. All right. Donald Trump is now out of office, and we're talking about impeachment. The House of Representatives, before he left the House, had impeached him. We went through the article of impeachment itself, explained how this works, how low the standard was. Basically, you can impeach anybody for anything. In fact, we did a whole show. We called it an impeachment party, where you could just go and draft your own article of impeachment. I gave you an example. I drafted one up for Kamala Harris in like 15, 20 minutes. No problem. Use the same standard. We have an example of what the Democrats use. You can just draft your own. Impeach everybody. It's the impeachment party. We want you to join in on that. But we're talking now specifically about Donald Trump's impeachment. Is he going to be impeached? He's not even in the White House anymore. anymore. He's not even in office. So how are they going to impeach a president where impeachment is about removing somebody from office when he's already out of office? So the question has been, is Nancy Pelosi, are Chuck Schumer and Nancy, are they going to continue and move forward with impeaching the president? And Pelosi says, yes, they are. She said Trump impeachment trial to begin, quote, soon. And he will not have a get out of jail free card. Pelosi has not yet transmitted the single article over to the Senate, meaning the trial cannot start. She said at the press conference that she was waiting for the Senate to return to session and she's considering other questions. So what the heck are those? We had to wait for the session and for the Senate to be in session. They've informed us that they're ready to receive. The other question is about how a trial will proceed, but we are ready, is what she says. House Speaker Pelosi said that they're going to begin trial soon and that Trump will not get a get out of jail free card just because he left office. They did impeach him last week after the Capitol 6 stuff, and some Democrats want to delay the trial to avoid distracting from Biden's early legislative agenda. It will be soon, she says. I don't think it will be long, but we must do it, she said at a press conference today. I'll be talking with the managers as to when the Senate will be ready for the trial and then President of the United States for his role in instigating an insurrection on the Capitol and the United States and on our democracy to undermine the will of the people. She said, now this is interesting. Let me move myself over here. She said that Pelosi said less evidence is needed than at Trump's first impeachment trial, which ended in February with Republicans acquitting him of abusing power and obstructing justice. So she's just saying we need even less than that, which was basically non-existent because Donald Trump did not, in fact, get removed from office. He was impeached by the House, but he was not removed because he was not convicted in the Senate. She's saying we need even less evidence than that, which is good because they actually have less evidence than that. They basically have no evidence. We went through the article of impeachment itself, and so that's great. That's all well and good. I'm glad that she is really embracing this concept of unity that Joe Biden was talking about yesterday. It looks like that lasted for about all of 10 minutes because Pelosi was out here today saying, no, impeachment's moving forward. No unity there. He deserves it. Here she is from the press conference.
To when the Senate will be ready for the trial of the then President of the United States for his role in instigating an insurrection on the Capitol of the United States, on our democracy, to undermine the will of the people. You don't say to a president, do whatever you want in the last months of your administration. You're going to get a get out of jail card free because people think we should make nice and forget that people died here on January 6th, that the attempt to undermine our election, to undermine our democracy, to dishonor our Constitution. No, I don't see that at all. I think that would be harmful to unity.
So she says that would be harmful to unity. So they're moving full steam ahead. You know, Biden could come out here and just give a statement on that. He could just say one way or the other, I don't support the impeachment, or I do support the impeachment, and we could just run with it. Or he can just sort of tacitly endorse impeachment, but not ever say it, right? Publicly in front of the American people say, unity, 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 stop this red versus blue stuff. We went through his transcript yesterday from his inaugural address. A lot of that language. Not everything has to be a war. Let's come together. Now's the time for healing. Rah, rah, rah. Chris Wallace over on Fox News was getting the same tingles up his leg that Chris Matthews had in 2008 when Obama was running. So just a lot of tingles from these people about this unity stuff. But when it comes to practice, not so relevant anymore. Nancy Pelosi says, no, in fact, in order to have unity, we do need to go through this impeachment proceeding because somehow that's going to satisfy the country. I have no idea what she's talking about, but that's what's happening. So it's sort of in a stalled phase right now. Still has not been transmitted over from the House to the Senate. But when it does, we're going to see what happens. All right, let's change gears yet again. Twitter today has been faced with a lawsuit. So this article came over from the New York Post, and it looks like Twitter refused to remove child porn because it didn't violate policies, according to the lawsuit. So very, very long lawsuit, and we're going to clip through some of it, not all of it. But what we can see is, starting here, Twitter refused to take down widely shared pornographic images and videos of a teenage sex trafficking victim because an investigation, quote, didn't find a violation of the company's policies, a scathing lawsuit alleges. Pretty serious stuff. The federal lawsuit was filed Wednesday by the victim and mother in the Northern District Court of California, Twitter alleges, and Twitter made money. They allege against Twitter. Twitter made money off of the clips, which showed a 13-year-old, oh my goodness, a 13-year-old engaged in sex acts that are a form of child sexual abuse material or child porn, the suit states. So very, very serious allegations, very young. The teen, who is now 17, lives in Florida, is identified only as John Doe and was between 13 and 14 years old when sex traffickers posing as a 16-year-old female classmate started chatting with him on Snapchat, the suit alleges. So the Doe and the traffickers allegedly exchanged nude photos before the conversation turned to blackmail. If the teen didn't share more sexually graphic photos or videos or explicit material that he'd already sent, would be shared with his parents, coach, and pastor. So just some of the worst people on the planet. Doe, acting under duress, initially complied, sent videos of himself performing sex acts, and was also told to include another child in his videos, which he did, the suit claims. He was 13. Eventually, Doe blocked the traffickers and they stopped harassing him. But at some point in 2019, the videos surfaced on Twitter under two accounts that were known to share child sexual abuse material, court papers allege. Over the next month, the videos would be reported to Twitter at least 3 times. The first was on December 25th, 2019, but the tech giant failed to do anything about it until a federal law enforcement officer got involved, the lawsuit states. So those are pretty serious allegations. And Twitter here is apparently trying to keep a nice, safe environment. They don't like when somebody says something that is a little bit provocative, like, the president, or somebody who says that maybe there's some questions about the election. All of those people are gone off immediately. Gone. But when somebody reports, hey, there's literal child pornography on your platform, and they report it 3 times, not a big deal. Just allow it to go on. And this is a wild lawsuit. If you want to read the whole thing, I would encourage you to do that. The links are in the slides. It is, it's bad. So this is what the top of the complaint looks like. U.S. District Court, Northern District of California. John Doe, a minor, is suing Twitter over here. We can see Twitter is named as the defendant. As you can see that. We've got benefiting from a sex trafficking venture in violation of Trafficking Victims Protection Act. So the one of the underlying claims that we're going to see here is Twitter makes money off of this stuff, right? I mean, that's their business model. You post stuff, you create content, you comment, you retweet, you're engaged on the platform. And as people are scrolling through their timeline, they look at their timeline and they see ads. Okay, so every time that you tweet something, Twitter's making a little bit of money, not from you directly because you're not paying for anything, but you're creating content that they can show other people, and then they can serve ads on top of the content. So they're just a medium. Now they've become sort of a publisher because they're allowing certain things to stay, kicking other people off, censoring the president, censoring other people, and it's all good except when it comes to pornography, or child pornography specifically. So now that they're benefiting, according to this lawsuit, from the trafficking of these victims. And they're also saying that it's a violation of their duty to report child sexual abuse. It was receipt and distribution of child pornography. We've got California products liability stuff. We've got regular negligence, gross negligence, negligence per se, negligent infliction of emotional distress. We got distribution of private sexual material, intrusion into private affairs, invasion of privacy under California law, and they're asking for a jury trial. The traffickers also attempted to meet with him in person. Fortunately, that never took place. Eventually, John Doe resolved to break free. Traffickers messaged him under another account. At some point in 2019, a compilation video of multiple CSAM videos were sent by John Doe to the traffickers, surfaced on Twitter. The compilation video was posted by these two, right? Fit males, straight bros, bros. So, just awful. John Doe submitted a picture of his driver's license to Twitter, proving that he is a minor. He emailed back the same day saying, yes, these tweets are videos of me and a friend taken from 3 years ago. These videos were taken from harassment, and they're being threatened. It's now spreading around school. We need them taken down, as we are both minors. We have a police report for the situation. Please, sends the link, take them down. Okay. These are spreading around the school. They're causing many issues. The police and the parents are both aware of it. These videos were taken 3 years ago. Me and so redacted are in these videos. And they say, hello, thanks for reaching out. We reviewed the content and didn't find a violation of our policies, so no action will be taken at this time. If you believe there's a potential copyright infringement, let us know. The content is hosted on a third-party website. Contact them. No, it's not. It's on Twitter's website, guys. Your safety is the most important thing. If you believe you're in danger, contact your local authorities. Hey, they already did that. Okay, take screenshots of the tweets. It's a good ideas, and so on. Okay, so this is pretty interesting from Twitter. They're saying here that they reviewed the content. All right, so they're acknowledging in writing that they reviewed this stuff, which is sort of not what you want to admit if you're defending a lawsuit that you were doing these things, to say, no, we looked at it. Okay, we actually looked at it. Thanks for reaching out. We reviewed the content. Didn't violate anything. So they're acknowledging by themselves that, hey, yeah, we looked at it and we let it stay. Twitter then ignored John Doe's final plea, and the illegal videos depicting the CSAMs remained live on Twitter. They got over 170,000 views, 167,000 views, 223 retweets. Each viewing is a harmful act to John Doe. So you can see that screenshot right there, right? Just awful. Twitter did not report anything. We've got, eventually through a mutual contact, they were able to contact the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Federal agent initiated contact with Twitter, and then it was finally removed from Twitter on January 20th. So what you'll see here is only after the takedown demand from the federal agent and Twitter suspend the user accounts that were distributing the and report all of that. This is directly in contrast to their automated message. So pretty gruesome, pretty gruesome stuff. And Twitter is now going to be facing a serious lawsuit. So we're going to continue to follow that one around and see where that goes. Make sure you stick around for that. We have, lastly, our last story is a story about some serious conflict going on. You know, you could call it a bad popo, you could call it a bad prosecutor, bad little, pro, whatever you want to call it. But we have here something that is just delicious, right? It's just so fun, because what we see here is a battle between a sheriff and a prosecutor. Now, normally they're on the same side, like they work together. Okay, the sheriff, they use their officers to go out and arrest people and incriminate individuals. They just turn their police reports over to the prosecutor's office, and then the prosecutor just runs with it. They move forward. They prosecute the individual. That's their job. Well, there's a little bit of a spat going on between these two. We have, this was posted by this guy, Bill Malugin, over on Twitter. He says, you are attempting to infect LA with this twisted version of criminal justice reform. So that is a nice, lovely little headline there. You are attempting to infect LA with this twisted version of criminal justice reform. What the heck? Who is this? What's she talking about? This is from Fresno County DA Lisa Smitkamp. She sent a scathing letter over to the LA DA, George Gascon, criticizing his policies. Wait, is it a district attorney? Criticizing his policies and notifying him she will refuse to grant him any jurisdiction. So, okay, so this is interesting. So I might have this wrong. George may not be a sheriff. Let's see. It doesn't matter. It's somebody else in the law enforcement. So he's a district attorney. George Gascon is a district attorney. He's also another prosecutor, and they're having a conflict over a story that we've talked about here previously, where basically George Gascon just refused to prosecute certain crimes, like pretty important ones, like aggravated assault on an officer or leaving the scene or resisting arrest. I think that was the most accurate one, resisting arrest. So if an officer tries to arrest you and you resist arrest, normally that's a new charge. Okay, if an officer stops and says, hey, you're under arrest for disorderly conduct, could be a very minor charge. But if you are resisting arrest, that's a whole new charge. And that's usually even more serious than the underlying offense, because we don't want people resisting arrest. So what George Gascon did is he came out. I thought he was a sheriff, but apparently he's not. He's just another DA. So even better, we have prosecutors arguing with prosecutors. This is just beautiful, delicious. So what's happening here is Gascon implemented just a whole slew of policies saying we're not going to prosecute crimes, essentially, which is their entire job. So Gascon is sort of responding to this, defund the police, reform criminal justice, all of the stuff that we just saw from Antifa in Portland and Seattle, same stuff we saw over the summer, getting really aggressive with I'm just not going to enforce crimes anymore. And we have this letter from Lisa Smitkamp that says, well, let's take a look. It's pretty juicy. She says, "Dear Mr. Gascon, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Smitkamp. I am an elected district attorney out of Fresno County. Although we served as elected DAs at the same time when you were in SFDA, we never met, nor did you participate in any CDAA, which is probably a prosecutor's seminar, conference, or trainings. I find that interesting as you have now moved on to LA County and you are so critical of other DAs and the work we do. Having never met you, I have no choice to simply judge you by the results of your work and the current state of your former county and your current county." So this one's, a little bit juicy. Since you never went to any of these conferences, we've never met. "I am not sure we share much in common. I'm a trial attorney and a proud, strong advocate for victims of crimes. I personally handled over thousands of cases over my 23-year prosecutorial career. I have worked with victims, theft, child molestation, lots of stuff, while leading them all down the path to healing and whatever form of justice was available. I believe in responsibility and accountability, law and order. I respect peace officers, yet I'm the first one ready to prosecute a police officer, public official, politician, if he or she commits a crime," which is good, right? That's good. I'm glad to hear that. "I would like to invite you to have an open discussion with me. I would like to better understand your thoughts and goals. I would like to know how you foresee your plans being beneficial to your county and this state, because no matter how many angles I have tried to see it, it all ends up with more crime, less accountability, less responsibility, more victims, more addiction, more mental illness, and California defense bar. The criminal justice system is designed so that there is a representative for the people, which includes victims in the community at large, and a representative for the accused. You are not serving the people by ignoring victims and solely focusing on the mass incarceration you seek to eliminate. The system does not work if there are 2 public defenders, nor would it work if there were 2 district attorneys. The people are entitled to be represented. Without that balance, public safety is compromised, and the health and welfare of the people and the economy and so on all suffer. While much work remains to be done in our state and nation, I'm proud of what we've done here in Fresno and our work done by our colleagues to enhance the lives. However, I do not embrace the belief that reform calls upon us to abandon our duties as prosecutors, or that it eviscerates our obligation to protect the public from violent criminals and to safeguard victims' rights. I will continue to keep the victims of crime in Los Angeles in my thoughts. I will hope and hold out hope that you may see the level of destruction that is impending if you continue on this path. Criminals, like all human beings, need structure, guidance, and authority, rules and order, and to chart a productive path. Your directive encourages a lack of accountability and responsibility for criminal activity. By discontinuing their responsibility to be productive members of society, you are hurting them too. Sincerely, Lisa Smitkamp. So there you go. We got 2 district attorneys from 2 different parts in California just duking it out with each other. As a criminal defense attorney myself, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. All right, that's it for the news. Let's take a look at the super chats. We got a couple of them rolling in. Let's take a start with Kevin Bacon's, oh God, YouTube deleting dislikes on mainstream media channels, inauguration, press briefing, etc. So that sounds about right there, Kevin Bacon. It looks like that's happening across the board. So I saw that on YouTube. Kind of hilarious, right? It's kind of funny that the country is so unhappy with it that they have to go in there and manipulate the numbers around. All right, so let's take a look. We got Wolfgang Deo. Did you look at the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors finally letting the legislature look at election stuff? EOs are not law per se, right? So executive orders are, yeah, I mean, they're law. They're executive orders. I mean, they're something that I think are legally binding within the purview of the executive branch. So, the executive branch is huge. And so they can just sort of dictate how certain things are going to work. So I think executive orders are well and good. And no, Wolfgang, I did not take a look at what the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors are doing, whether they let the legislature look at the election stuff or not. I haven't been following it. Most of the election litigation stuff I have just deemed to be inconsequential at this point in time, so I'm just not looking at it as much. If something interesting pops up, I'll take a look at it, but I probably am not even going to talk about it on the show because it's just inconsequential at this point. It just doesn't matter. We have Chris Wolney in the house, says Trump told Pennsylvania this petro cut was coming. He did, didn't he? He said that pretty clearly. He said that a lot during that first debate. You're going to do it. He's going to ban fracking. You're going to ban it. Just admit it, Joe. Just admit it. Come on, Joe. And he got skewered for that. Well, looks like he was right. Good to see you, Chris. SSW Lamb says, hi, Rob. The Communist Party USA was burning the U.S. flag at the Colorado State Capitol. Where's the Dems in the media in condemning this? Antifa, domestic terrorists. No, it's true. I mean, that's happening around the country. We played the video. New York Times even covered it. But where are they? Well, it's going to be just, I was reading the article and it didn't even say Antifa. It just said anti-governments. All right. So you're not even willing to label them. Like, we all know what's going on here. And they're not going to condemn it because it's still useful. That's their team. They're not calling out the fringe elements on their side. I have been doing that, much to a lot of people's dismay. I've been saying, we're going to call out the fringe people who are part of the, I would say, conservative-ish movement. We're going to call them out. If they were doing bad things, we'll call them out. They're not going to do that with their side. It's their prerogative. But when it comes back to bite them in the butt, which it probably will at some point in time, they only have themselves to blame. We have Za Jiang says, you should wear a mask in this live stream. Should I? Maybe I will. The mask things really bother me. And I really can't stand when politicians are using masks when they're in front of a podium. Nancy Pelosi does this all the time. It just boggles my mind. Maybe Biden should do it since he passed the rule, but maybe now they should all do it, right? Think about that. Maybe Joe Biden, since the White House is federal land, should he be wearing a mask all over the place? Should he be wearing a mask in the Oval Office? It's a should, right? He should wear one because it's the Oval Office and you have other people doing government business there. Federal lands. Now upstairs when he's in the residence, okay, maybe we can give him a little leeway on that because it's a residential area. But when he's in the Oval Office, when he's doing business in the West Wing, when he's traveling around, by his own rules, right? By his own rules, folks. I didn't write the rules. I didn't pass that executive order. He should be wearing a mask. Everybody in there should be wearing a mask. Why wasn't Jen Psaki, the new press secretary, why wasn't she wearing a mask in that briefing room? All of the reporters were. Where was her mask? Their own standards, hold them to it. They're going to fail every time because their standards are insane. They're ridiculous. They don't make any sense. They know they don't make any sense. It's just virtue signaling. So, well, we'll see if they start masking up or if the public demands that of them. Another one from JB says, someone would have told him to put a mask on. They do these things to cause a fury. They need conservative protesters to do something stupid for narratives. That's an interesting point. Interesting take, right? They're sort of goading people to say, we're going to pass this national mask thing, but we're not going to do it with the hopes that people are going to get outraged about some of that stuff. We have the Wandering Mariner. We have the press corps. You get a banana. And remember, no tough questions or no bananas, banana for you. I can't wait until the real press questions start. I'm not holding my breath on that one, Wandering. I just think that it's going to be like a game of patty cake back and forth. Just a little bit of, okay, you're here. Thanks for holding us accountable. We'll play the game a little bit and we'll just move on. Good to see you. Kevin Schroeder says, bills have long been written by well-paid lobbyists on behalf of global corps and special interest groups, not our reps. I feel our country is just a host to blood-sucking parasites. Work together to spin us all. Yeah, I think you're probably onto something there, Kevin. It's a disappointing thing, but I would agree. It's very difficult we're sort of in this cycle where a lot of our political people, I just don't think have the wherewithal to craft good legislation. It's a difficult task if you think about it. I'm working right now on a digital Bill of Rights, and I'm just playing around with the idea right now, but it's complicated and there's a lot that goes into it. I don't think that I would be competent to do it myself. I'd want a team of people, other input. I would want to think through it a lot of different ways. And so if you're going to ask your elected political officials to do that, to get together and do these things, that's a lot of work for them. They need to be out there kissing babies and giving speeches and playing the charade of politics. They don't really have time to actually draft legislation. So all that other stuff gets delegated out. And you can imagine in a situation where you just have, somebody, a nice lobbyist who comes up and says, oh yeah, that problem that your constituents have? We got that covered for you. We've been working on this bill. This is perfect. It's beautiful. Just take it and run with it. That bill's going to get in there. And the political class, they don't know any better. Many of them aren't lawyers. They're just people who just say, it sounds good. Okay, Nancy Pelosi wants it done too. All right, I'm going to get on board with that. And so it's just sort of a bunch of individuals being led around by their collars, all playing the political game. But we know who really runs things in this country. And I don't think it's the politicians. We have another one from Wolfgang Deo says, is it true that each Senate confirmed cabinet member goes into the line of succession for the president should something happen? Those could be presidents. Well, it's not just anybody who's confirmed. There is a Presidential Succession Act that defines what that looks like. And I think it goes all the way down to like 23 positions, like all the way down to the Department of Agriculture. And I think it starts with the president's cabinet. So it'll go president, vice president, House of Representatives, then back to the cabinet, and sort of delineates who would be next. So you have a whole list of 23 people who could potentially be president in that list. Thanks, Wolfgang. We got Beth Coddington says, hello, one of my husband's friends called about a month ago. His son's best friend is a chief physician at an Arizona hospital. He said he was required to log every death as a COVID. I've heard a lot of that. I've heard a lot about that. There are videos that were floating around. Many of them have been removed, but a lot of them were saying that, you know, there were people who were dying of heart attacks, or they would come in and they would have a brain aneurysm or something like that. And they would also have COVID, but it would be logged as a COVID death, not a heart attack, not a brain aneurysm, not a stroke. The primary cause was COVID. Well, they may have actually had COVID, but that was not the underlying cause of death. So a lot of interesting things. And if that changes, right, what if they just say, okay, don't count the COVID ones anymore? If the primary cause was something else and they had COVID, we're going to count the primary cause, not the COVID, when previously it may have been flipped. And I don't know, all this stuff. I'm not a doctor. I don't live in the hospitals. I don't really know how it works. All of it's just hearsay. And you've heard it too, Beth. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the numbers can be manipulated any which way you want them. We have SSW Lamb says, CCP and the World Health Organization are responsible for the COVID deaths. They hid human transmission details for 2 weeks, and the CCP allowed their citizens international travel. I think there's some pretty good evidence for that too. I was thinking that there was something going on. I think I got extremely sick late last year, like in 2019, early 2020, and in a sickness I had never had before. And it was just a weird sort of thing, and it just kind of came and went. And then COVID popped up, and I was like, oh, maybe I already had it. I don't know. I don't know if I did or not, but it's curious. How long was this really spreading around the world before we got a handle on it? I would guess probably a lot longer than anybody's willing to reveal to us. Thanks, SSW Lamb. Matt Maker Jenny says, you nailed it about the pipeline. Energy prices will go up. I've been in oil and gas 30 years. I'm one of those unemployed. Terrible. Oil is safer transferred by pipeline. Sorry to hear that, Matt Maker Jenny. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense to me. Build a new... Like a lot of our energy and infrastructure, I'm not sure why it's not newer. I keep hearing about like Gen 4 nuclear and all these different, updated technology. Why are we still using technology from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Everything else has increased. Why don't we think about that? And the Keystone XL pipeline seemed like one of those projects, right? We have this new, great, beautiful thing going on in Canada, all this shale and all this new technology. The United States was a net exporter, I think, for the first time ever in 2018. And we've got all this energy. Remember that huge issue that we had, energy independence. Remember we were saying that in the early 2000s? God, no war for oil. We need energy independence. It was a talking point almost by both parties. Well, now we've got it. Now we're working on it. We've got a pipeline that was already being worked on for the last 4 years and gone. So they're going to go back to rail and cars and trucks or whatever it is they do to transfer oil, when you could have had a nice, big, beautiful pipeline that just made it go through easily with minimal impact on the environment. But that is not how it works. It's not about practicality. It's not about efficiency. It's about political virtue signaling. And the left has already made the Keystone Pipeline enemy number one. So the first thing that Joe Biden needed to do to satiate his very active and vocal base was to nix it. Sorry to hear that, Matt Maker Jenny. I'm sorry to hear that you're unemployed. I would really, I'll say prayers for you, and I think many other people in this channel will as well. Thanks for sharing that with us. Sniper Jared says, if I am elected, my first act will be to award Alex Jones the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He is a living treasure trove of memes. That's, I think, why I love it so much. I mean, it was just so, it's so funny. I mean, I'm hopeful somebody else thinks it's funny and doesn't think that I'm just making much ado about nothing, but we're getting gang raped by capitalists. They're going to come and do something to your wife. They're going to shut your power off, all this stuff, just in rapid fire succession, like a machine gun. And it's just outstanding. Excellent. There's a reason why he is who he is. Thanks for Thanks for noticing that there, Sniper Jared. We have Matt Maker Jenny says, oh, by the way, don't look for the domain impeachkamala.com. I tried to get it today and it was taken. So everybody's jumping on board because it's probably going to happen. You know, we may have started a little bit of a movement here. We have a little impeachment movement going on, and maybe we'll just start drafting some more. I think it'd be kind of cool to draft up an article of impeachment. I don't have the time to do this, but for every single person in Congress, right? All 435 House of Representatives, all 100 senators, just let's draft the articles, and then somebody can run for office, and that can be their promise. On day one, when you get into Congress, or not, let's say I'm hypothetically running. As soon as you put me into Congress, I'm filing articles on every single member in Congress. All right, they're not going to input any term limits. They're not going to, to voluntarily leave office. So we're just going to impeach everybody. Right. And of course, it's not going to go anywhere because you need them to do something with it. But it would just be a public spectacle that I would enjoy seeing. I think it'd be a lot of fun. We have Cyril Herv says most people wear seatbelts not because they think it protects them, but for fear of a fine. Apply the same logic to masks indoors. So, OK, yeah. So, all right. So it's sort of like goading people into following suit. Right. It's like goading people into following the rules. They don't actually care about it. They know it probably doesn't work. They know it probably doesn't do much for them. But I think seatbelts are pretty protective. So maybe masks are. I understand your point there, Cyril. Thanks for the support. Thanks for being on the program. We have Lava Java Lava with a very, very nice, ripe looking peach. Thanks, Lava. We have another one from Jamie Boyd here. Says, keep it up. We got a working out pear with doing a little biceps and a little one leg stand over there. Thanks, Jamie Boyd. We have Chris Wolney says scenario, criminal prosecution potshots coming at conservatives by feds with an agenda to permanently take their voting rights. Foreseeable or tinfoil hat. So the voting rights thing is interesting. I think that the standard here, this would be, the standard is currently high, right? The standard is currently, you got to be convicted of a felony in order to lose your voting rights. And that's a criminal charge that is a serious charge. It's not a misdemeanor. If you get a DUI, if you get a domestic violence conviction, let's say you get one of those, you go out to, Old Town in your area, in your city, whatever that looks like, wherever you're living, and you get into an altercation, that's assault. You get criminal trespass, urinating in public, any one of these offenses, not a big deal. Even a second offense DUI, at least in Arizona, it's not a felony. Okay, it's still a misdemeanor. And you can get convicted of any one of those misdemeanors and not lose your right to vote. So the next standard up is considerably higher. It's a felony charge. And felony charges, one of the ways that we distinguish them when we're sort of talking to people about it is if you get convicted of, the worst penalty you could get for a lower level misdemeanor is jail. In Arizona, you cannot go to jail for longer than 6 months if you've been convicted of a misdemeanor for one offense, right? 6 months is the max. But if you're convicted of a felony, now we're talking about prison. Jail versus prison. The other distinguishing factor is you lose your right to vote, you lose your right to a firearm. It's a serious thing, and there's a lot more protections in place. You get a bigger jury, you get a lot more resources if you need them. The government will help pay for investigators and things. You get basically the entire public defender's office. The standards are a lot higher because they realize if we're going to be taking people away from their lives, from living in the world, we're going to incarcerate them in prison for a long period of time, longer than 6 months. We need to make sure that this is where there are very robust protections in place to make sure that we get the right person. And if they are successful, then you lose all of those other very important constitutional rights, voting and firearms and all that, other federal benefits. So it's a very high standard. So you would need, that's not going to change in my opinion anytime soon. What could potentially change would be the criminalization under federal statute of certain language, making that language a felony, right? So now let's say they just sort of diversify from insurrectionists to Trump supporters to white supremacists to any libertarians. The sort of scope keeps expanding, and a libertarian somewhere says something that is now dangerous, prohibited language, and that's criminalized. And because they were communicating that to somebody else, that is now a felony. It's a conspiracy charge. We covered some lawsuits or some affidavits, some criminal complaints that were drafted by the FBI last week when we were saying that they weren't charged with any Capitol Hill rioting at all. They weren't even there the day of the Capitol Hill riots. They got there after the fact. They got there the next day. But what were they charged with? Sending threatening text messages across state lines. We talked about Cleveland Meredith Jr. That person, I think that was his name, Meredith Jr. somebody or other, who was sending text messages that he was going to run over Nancy Pelosi or whatever it was. And that was a threat. That was a felony charge that's being handled in federal district court. And if he gets convicted of that, his voting rights are gone. And he wasn't even let out of custody either. So you can see where this can go and how it can snowball quickly. Generally speaking, it's hard to get convicted of a felony for something that's not felonious behavior. It needs to be serious. But if it is, they pass some new whatever law that is now criminalizing speech, and you communicate that speech across state lines, and they just get you caught up in their trap, and boom, now you're convicted of a felony and you lose your rights. That would be very difficult to implement, I think, in a massive scale, in a way that would adjust the future elections or anything like that. But it is a concern. I think it's foreseeable, maybe a little tinfoil hatty, maybe a little bit, but something worth thinking about. We have Beth Coddington says, OANN did a report on the inaccuracy of PCR tests for COVID. I'll post it on Locals. It's the ace in their pocket. Sweet. So Beth Coddington's going to go post that on Locals, which is awesome. That's exactly what it's for. Sharing great stuff. I'm going to be using it a lot more, actually. I think I'm going to start posting articles and, getting your thoughts, maybe post some polls. What should we talk about today and all that type of stuff. So thanks for that, Beth. I've long had suspicions about this, that, maybe the tests weren't right. And some of the testing just felt a little bit weird. You would, at least here in Arizona, it would take us like 3 or 4 days to go get a test. You'd have to schedule it. Not now anymore, but early on, it would take like 4 days to go get a test. And so you say, I need a test. 4 days later, what does the test matter anymore? You know whether you got it or not. And if you did have it, then you're probably mostly through it. So what are we testing for? What's the whole point of that? If it takes 4 days before you know it, and you're going to use the test to do something, I mean, other than confirming you've got it and quarantining yourself, what's it for? It just didn't make much sense. And I know there are other companies that had different solutions out there that were never approved by the FDA. Other solutions that would allow you to do, they were less accurate tests, but you could do more of them, and you could do them at home. And that would help you identify sooner that you had it, so that you could actually do something. You could start taking some treatment, or you could start loading up on vitamins, or you could try some of those alternative medicines or whatever. But that never came to pass. So a lot of questions about the tests just from a practicality standpoint. We have Teresa Child said, hi, Rob, Faith, and Ma. I think Dave Rubin stole your impeach everybody idea with a twist. He spent his show today writing executive orders. Well, that's good. So Dave Rubin is jumping on the impeachment party bandwagon. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's great. If he wants to take it and run with it, I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, whatever. I mean, the idea is not all that original. We just did it. We just said, okay, look how easy this stuff is, right? Anybody can draft this stuff. And so I'll take a look at his show and see what those executive orders look like. Pretty fun stuff. I think a lot of people on this side of the aisle are going to have fun with this, because the Democrats' standards are just so low, so asinine, that it's just easy to play that game. We have Chris Wolney says, chances of the Fed prosecutorial misconduct going up soon. Federal prosecutorial misconduct going up soon. Is so prosecutorial misconduct is kind of a high standard. This is something that defense attorneys like to imply, that prosecutors are engaging in some sort of prosecutorial misconduct, but courts and state bars, they're all sort of really slow. They're all kind of these big bureaucratic entities. Prosecutors' offices are big bureaucratic agencies. They work closely with a lot of judges. You've got state bars, which are largely big bureaucratic agencies, and they all kind of are in cahoots together. And that's just one man's opinion. I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of how it feels. And so any allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, they kind of don't go anywhere unless it's a very serious claim. Very serious claims can be things like they didn't disclose Brady material. You have a bad officer. They know that it's a bad officer. They don't tell you about it. That's a big deal. If they are doing things that are unethical, like if they're trying to pit witnesses against witnesses, or we've seen some complaints where a defense lawyer, let's say, steps out of the courtroom. So they're all in a courtroom together. You have a prosecutor, a police officer, a defense attorney, the defendant, the defense attorney's clients. They're all in a courtroom together. and they're preparing for a trial, or they're talking about negotiating and settling through a plea deal. And let's say the defense attorney has to step out of the courtroom to go use the restroom or to make a phone call. Well, what happens at that point in time if the prosecutor talks to the defendant without their attorney present? And what happens if that prosecutor says something like, hey, your attorney's an idiot because he should have, we were giving you a smoking deal and you didn't take it, and things are going to get worse if you go to trial. Whoa. Huge problem. Okay, defense attorney comes back in, client says, hey, I don't know if she's supposed to do this, but she said that you kind of were blowing this. She was going to give us a good deal and all this. And can I talk to you about this? Because I'm scared out of my pants right now. Catastrophic problem. Something like that happened here in Phoenix. So is that going to happen on a grand scale across the United States? Probably not, right? Probably not. But if you start to see sort of a widespread cover-up of certain offenses, like let's say, for example, this stuff continues in Portland or Seattle, and you've got prosecutors now who are dropping the ball or making political charging decisions, you might be able to make some claims that they are engaging in something that looks like or is prosecutorial misconduct. Thanks, Chris. Another one from SSW Lamb says, the impeachment will fail. It's unconstitutional, and there's no evidence. I am sure Trump is quaking in his boots in his Florida smoking cigar. I think you're probably right there, SSW Lamb. I think it probably is unconstitutional. It doesn't make any sense for me. We went through the statute. We went through the Constitution itself and read the impeachment clause. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I think it mirrors a lot of the same issues that we were running into when we were talking about election litigation as well. Once the election has been certified, courts were dismissing the lawsuits because they were saying, well, there's nothing we can do. There's no remedy we can grant you. If we gave you what you asked for, then we would have to undo all of these other things. It's not possible. So we're just going to dismiss the lawsuit. Kind of the same thing. They're trying to impeach Trump to ask for his removal from office. He's already removed from office. So what are they asking for anymore? Doesn't make much sense, and I'm sure Trump knows that. Eileen Sanchez says, Pelosi said that people died in the Capitol. Yes, they did, because of Democrats committed fraud. Like, what is it going to take for people to wake up? And so, Eileen, we're not allowed to say that word. The fraud word's bad. Joe Biden won the presidency. He's in office. It is what it is. And, Nancy Pelosi, she's got a political axe to grind as far as I can tell. I'm not particularly sure that she is mourning in grief every night because people died, right? She's a political operator, if I ever knew one, and she's using this to exploit a political opportunity. I don't think she's personally roiled up inside over what happened at the Capitol. We have Beth Coddington says, LOL, Epic Times just posted YouTube, deleted some of the likes on the inauguration video, called it spam. Yeah. Yeah, it's spam. Yeah, it's just spam. People actually didn't actually dislike it. They just didn't know any better. They were just spam. It was just spam. I don't know what YouTube is doing, but I was watching another video from another individual last night, and he was saying that his channel is just basically in a bubble. Our channel has been in a bubble. We're just like losing subscribers. It's crazy. I know that we are sort of getting away from some of the Trump stuff, and people don't like my opinion, so I'm just describing it to that. But it is concerning that other channels are also seeing this bubble put around you. And I was reading through some of the community guidelines today to see if they had spoken about it, and they have. I mean, YouTube has specifically spoken about it. They said that stuff that is questionable content, they're just going to make it non-distributable essentially anymore. Not going to show up in the likes, not going to show up in the suggested next. They call it borderline content, and they're going to put a little bubble around it so that nobody else can find it. On some of the stuff that is even more borderline, they'll remove the sharing options, just like we saw with Twitter. You can't retweet stuff, you can't like stuff. And so I was reading the guidelines, and YouTube is saying they're doing it actively. So, it doesn't surprise me. I don't even think it's a conspiracy anymore. YouTube says on its face that they're going in there and they're curating the content in a way that fits their ends. And it's their platform, so they're entitled to do it. We have another one from Operation Flag Drop. Why is my slide not changing? There we go. Operation Flag Drop says Nancy's unity is, quote, one absolute narrative, challenges the narrative, must be destroyed, including words, messages, organizations, and especially people. That was over from Operation Flag Drop, New Jersey. And yeah, it is a big unity I think in our description I put Unity TM, trademark, right? Like, hey, this is the brand that we're running with. It's all about unity, because if you say anything that is in opposition to the Democrats' strategy, now you're against unity. How dare you? How could you possibly be against unity at a time like this, when our country just suffered one of the greatest atrocities to democracy that we've ever seen in our lives, in the history of the country, analogous to Pearl Harbor and World War II? We need unity more than ever. We need healing. And those of you who are challenging our new administration are responsible for the wrecking of the American spirit. How dare you? So just get used to that. It's kind of fun. We have Kenny 1B says, can you recommend several good first-year law school books that I can buy from not Amazon to read? Oh my goodness. I don't think I'd read anything before law school. I don't think I would. Law school is nothing but reading. And so I would get your mind ready to just read and read and read. Let me say, if there was something that I wish I would have read, it would have been something more about mindset. So nothing about the law, nothing at all about the law, something about confidence, something about staying true to your course, something about, the 4 Agreements, I think would be an excellent book. I actually have a copy right here. This is a good book. It's called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he's got 4 principles in there that I think if you operate by these, you'll do better in law school. And one of them is be impeccable with your word. So always be true to your word. Another one is what I'm having a mind blank. Be impeccable with your word. 1 second. This is embarrassing. I write it on my journal. It's on my existence system. It's right here on my existence system. I write it down and underline it every day, and I can't think about it right now. Okay, it's that one. It says, be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always try your best. Okay, those are 4 agreements. If you can live within those 4 agreements, I underline these every day, and I couldn't even remember them. But it's true, because if you are impeccable with your word, you keep your word to yourself is just as important. So I'm going to do this assignment by this particular time. I'm going to get you that document by that time. The teacher, professor says this is due by this day. Get it done. Be impeccable with your word. Always try your best, right? Always try your best. If you know that you've always tried your best, then things are going to be, you're going to be able to sleep at night. Law school has a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure, a lot of public speaking, a lot of people sort of stepping over each other to get the highest grade in class, to show that they're better than everybody else. It's very aggressive. You have a lot of alpha type, type A personalities in there. And so had I been a little bit more, I would say, grounded and less concerned about what other people think, or what the professor thought of me, or what my classmates thought of me, or how I was performing, if I would have just operated according to those 4 agreements, I think I would have performed better. I already performed well, and I was pleased with my law school performance. But if you're asking, is there a good constitutional book or something like that? I would say no. I would say get your mind right, get your environment right, have a good workspace, and then you'll crush it in law school. Thanks, Kenny. We have Ditka's Bear says 2022 is our time. No mail-in voting. Cheats, don't forget to vote. So 2022, yeah, it's a short, thanks, Ditka's. 2022 is a short time away. And I've been saying this for a long time, that the change starts locally. It's got to start local with your local Senate, your local House of Representatives, those individuals with whom you have a close relationship, a close ratio of representation. That's where you got to start, because they are going to be the ones who can go in and start questioning things, start writing bills in preparation for 2022. And if it doesn't happen, if it's the same game as it was last time, and it's the same game in 2024 as it was in 2020, we're going to be right in the smack middle of this problem again. I'm hopeful that doesn't happen, but unless something changes, it's just going to happen again. And the country is going to continue to just slide down, and everybody's just going to lose total faith in the election. And that is very, very problematic for the country. So we'll see if anything changes between now and the next one. We got Turd Ferguson says, is the White House official channel removing videos, removing public records from inspection? What about the chat option, turning off the chat option vis-a-vis Knight versus Trump? White House petitions page scrubbed because unity also, I guess. It's a good point there, turd. I'm going to be very curious to see what happens when it comes to litigation. Remember, they were very aggressive with Donald Trump in Knight versus Trump. I think if it's the lawsuit you're talking about there, turd, there was Donald Trump was blocking people off Twitter. I believe that's what that was. And they sued him for that. They said, nope, you're the president. You don't get to block citizens. Sorry, boy. So he was not allowed to do that. It was unconstitutional for him to do that. So now if the Biden White House is removing records, removing videos that are a part of the public record, part of the public discourse, if they're turning off comments and not allowing people to communicate, is that analogous to the other lawsuit where they said what Donald Trump was doing was wrong? Is it also wrong for Biden to do it? We're going to have to wait and see. And I also saw that they did delete the petitions page. Remember, I think Obama started it. You could go to the White House and say, well, we should do this. And you submit a petition and then everybody signs it and they would consider it. And then, of course, nothing ever got done. So apparently the White House got rid of that also. So they don't really want to hear from you, quite frankly. They don't want you at the inauguration. They don't want you on their YouTube page. Especially if you're a conservative, they don't want you even on the internet, right? They don't even want you on Parler. They don't want you on Twitter. They don't even want you they don't want to hear from you at all, which is pretty standard. Beth Coddington says, Locals is telling me I have to donate to post. What? Huh. Really? All right. I'll look into that, Beth. I thought it was free and optional. Anyways, it's $5. I think so. We're still trying to figure out Locals, to be perfectly honest with you. We had a bunch of other weird posts from the old times that we were using it pop up, and we're sort of right now, we're still in the very small tier. We're at the very low tier. And so we don't have a bunch of options. So apparently they told us you have to get over 100 people in your group before they will allow you to, I can't add Miss Faith as a moderator or as an admin of the group. Why not? Because we're still in the small tier, even though we have like 200 people who are over there already. So I don't really know what's going on. We'll take a look at that, Beth. I can, I'll look into it and we'll try to get that sorted out. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. Aaron Seavey says, hey, Rob, can you help me understand the Arizona Phoenix courts? Why is there two different systems? If you have a public defender, one court, get a real lawyer, changes another. So you really shouldn't change courts based on your attorney. They should be the same court. So the criminal charge originates out of one court. If you're charged with a felony in Maricopa County, you're going to go to the Maricopa County Superior Court. That's where all the felonies are heard. Whether you have a private attorney or a public defender, the case is still going to be out of the Superior Court. Now, you may meet with your lawyer in different locations, but the same court's going to handle it. If you are charged with a misdemeanor in Maricopa County, it depends on where you're at. It could be a number of city courts, Scottsdale City Court, Mesa, Glendale, Gilbert, whatever. It could also be a justice court, and those are all misdemeanor level courts. But if it's a felony, it's going to go up to the Superior Court. If it's a misdemeanor, it'll be a lower level court. But again, it still wouldn't change courts. You would still, the charge is geographic based, and a court has a jurisdiction over a particular geographic area. So unless they figured out that your case actually didn't happen in that geographic area, it's going to stay in that court until the conclusion of the case. We have Cable Box says, where did you find the COVID positive guidelines? So that was over, I believe that was from Ethical Skeptic. So go to Ethical Skeptic, look up Ethical Skeptic on Twitter, and then he has the link to the World Health Organization website. So just go to it's on Twitter at Ethical Skeptic, or just search for Ethical Skeptic, and then you'll be able to follow the link trail, or just download the slides. I think I have the link in the slides over on Locals. Wolfgang Deo says, made a dental appointment. The lady said she was relieved yesterday. I told her I was working against it. She brought up conspiracy theory. I'm like, okay. Yeah, so a lot of diverging opinions around there in the world. We have Sabo Abbas is asking, so if the politicians don't really run things in this country, who does? Well, I think it's sort of this amalgamation of big corporation and big media and big military and the politicians, right? You have these sort of superstructures that exist throughout this country, and they're all sort of in cahoots with one another. And they're ultimately responsible for how everything works. You know, we just saw Jeff Bezos sent a letter over to the government or over to Biden administration saying, hey, we can help with that vaccine distribution. Well, why didn't he offer that a month ago when the vaccine was available? when it was the Trump administration? Well, because he didn't want Trump. He didn't want Trump to help. He didn't want Trump to get any benefit off of Amazon. Didn't like Trump. Trump didn't like him. They didn't like the Washington Post. They didn't like each other. So Bezos just kind of held back and just waited until he could use his entire empire called Amazon to sort of facilitate and get enmeshed with the federal government. We'll see what the federal government does about that. But, Google, Facebook, Twitter, the politicians know. We've seen the politicians call all of those individuals into the Senate Judiciary Committee or Senate whatever committee and ask them questions and say, hey, why are you censoring these people? Blah, 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 blah. And they just lie through their teeth. They just say, no, we don't censor. And we go, well, we have, all of us actual people who know how it works. We're sitting there pulling our hair out because we know they're lying and we know that there is censorship. But the politicians, they don't even know what a like is. They don't know what a post is. They don't know what HTTPS is. They don't know any of that stuff. So they're just going, oh, well, Jack said he didn't censor anybody. So it must be good. Or I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe they actually do know how this stuff works and they know who really runs things and they don't want to jeopardize their campaign funding. They don't want to jeopardize their public relations the next time they run. And so they all play ball. They all just throw the patty cake ball back and forth. As long as things don't get too crazy, it works for everybody. But when you get a guy like Donald Trump in there who is really, sort of rattling the cage, it scares the hell out of everybody. And now you need this consolidation of these power structures that are the media, the military, that are the big tech companies, that are the government apparatus. Nobody wanted him in there because he was shaking the apple cart too much. And that was ruining the fun for them. So I think it's more than just the politicians. I mean, if you think that Joe Biden is in charge of this country single-handedly, I think you've got a misperception on how this works. And I would have said the same thing for Donald Trump. I don't really think that he was running everything. He tried to get a handle on certain things, and you just saw that the behemoth, the beast of the bureaucracy, would push back, and it was just over. Nothing you can do, which is not a bad thing, right? We don't want a dictatorial country where one single person runs everything. It's not a bad thing that we have all these layers on top of one another. I've said this before. I think that we have this sort of corporate safety blanket, which keeps a lot of Americans very happy, very docile. When people were talking about martial law and a civil war, I'm thinking, no way. No way. You think people are going to give up their Netflix and their DoorDash and go fight with their neighbors over free speech? Get the hell out of here. That's not going to happen, right? Everybody's very comfortable. Most people have what they need. I know there's a lot of people in this country who are struggling dramatically, but they're being dealt with according to this administration. They're there. We know that they're there. We know that a lot of people are hurting, but if you're vocal about it, they'll deplatform, they'll throw you off the internet, and they'll just keep running things however they want to run things. So it's a good question. Very long answer. Thanks, Sabo. We have chairman of the board says, AZ Central is reporting that Maricopa County is reopening everything for investigation regarding the 2020 election. If you don't follow this, who will? You're needed. Get the word out. All right, Chairman. Well, I will take a look at that. I have not seen that headline today, so that might be new. I will take a look at AZ Central here very shortly. We have another one from Chucky BTV. Says, excellent show, Rob. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Chucky. And Chucky B, does he have a TV? Does he have TV? If so, check out that channel. Thanks, Chucky. We have Turd Ferguson says, May equals wrong thinkers named and shamed. If you are Biden violating it, also filmed in the White House without it, it's okay because unity and healing. Yeah, unity and healing. It's kind of the new hope and change, right? Unity and healing. And if you don't agree with us, if you criticize Biden violating his own executive order in the White House or at the Lincoln Memorial, you are against unity. You're against healing. I'm with you there, Turd. Impeachment party all the way. Explicitly wild. Can you explain the Paris Climate Agreement, good or bad? So I can't really explain it, to be honest. I haven't spent much time studying the Paris Agreement or the Climate Agreement or any of that stuff. I am, I would say, less inclined to participate in these big global agreements for everybody. I don't think that they're fair. I think the United States always pays for the lion's share of these programs, and the United States typically does the most of anything, right? I mean, we actually do things because we hold our people accountable for the most part. I think that when we left the climate agreement, I was seeing headlines that our emissions were already lower, right? With Trump there and with Republican control of the Senate and so on, the emissions were already going down. So what does the Paris Climate Agreement do other than just it's like a feel-good sticker that you just kind of, hey, I went to the Paris Agreement. Yeah, hey, look at me. I support the global effort on this thing. It just feels like that. And, when you look at other countries, when you look at China or India and the amount of pollution and, compared to the United States, it's not even remotely close. I mean, it's an unequal playing field, and I don't know why the U.S. just likes to jump into that stuff. It just feels like it's a political spectacle. But again, I don't know much about it, so I'm kind of talking out of my rear on that. We have Lava Java Lava says, Rob, has our current president been a segregationalist sympathizer in the past? Well, you know, I think he's got some history there with, what's that guy's name who was the former Klan member, KKK, Robert Byrd, I think, was a former Klansman over at the KKK. And I do think that there are some images of Biden kind of hanging around with him. So I think you could make the argument there that there is a sympathetic relationship, or there was. I don't think Robert Byrd's around anymore, but there was at one point in time a sympathetic relationship with somebody who was a segregationalist. And I mean, that sounds like easily a short stone's throw away from insurrectionists. So we'll see where that goes. Oh, we got Rachel Fromm in the house. What's up, Rachel? She says, do you know if gun laws have changed yet and how they will affect Americans moving forward? P.S. Your use of the word delicious is on point. Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate you being here. Good to see you. She says, have gun laws changed yet and how will it affect Americans moving forward? So I have not seen anything about this yet. I have seen that the NRA is in trouble. I've seen a lot of indications from Biden and his administration that they're going to be moving after guns. We talked a little bit about this yesterday where somebody was asking, you know, are they going to be able to go and confiscate these things? Or if they were to pass a law, is that going to be something that is successful? And I just, my inclination on this is I'm not particularly worried about it. I am somebody who very much appreciates the Second Amendment. But at this point in time, I think that there's just no political willpower to get this done, right? Americans are becoming a little bit more individualized just as a direct result of the COVID and lockdowns. Things are tightening up a little bit. People are seeing what's happening in Seattle, in Portland. They're seeing what happened at the Capitol building. They're recognizing how incompetent our government is in many situations. I mean, people are upset about the vaccine rollout. They're kind of upset about everything. And so the idea now that the federal government is going to protect you from anything and everything when the federal government has been largely incompetent our whole lives is making more and more people inclined to arm up, stock up, right? Get that toilet paper, get those canned goods, get that 40 caliber, 9mm, whatever it is. Rachel, I was thinking about you. So Rachel's a friend. Rachel knows my mom, and my mom just got a 9mm. She never would have bought that. So somebody who has if the country has the political willpower to continue to buy ammunition, to continue to stock up on guns, I don't know how the federal government is going to swing the pendulum the other way. So thanks for the support. Thanks for the super chat. Good to see you around. We have Chris Wolney says, easy to get accused of 18 U.S. Code 1001. That's a felony, which is, I think that's a conspiracy charge. Don't have it open in front of me, but I believe that's one of the earliest ones. Conspiracy. Conspiracy is basically anything. If you have a conversation with somebody about something bad that's criminalized, you are now a conspirator. We have Aaron Seavey. Rob, U.S. Senate, do they follow the written rule, the law, or do they use precedent to decide how to handle business precedent was used when Pence signed the electoral vote? So it's different. You know, they have parliamentarian rules in the Senate. And this is something that I don't know much about. You know, they sort of come up with these deals and how they're going to conduct things on the fly, and they change pretty rapidly. So I think what Pence was doing is he was looking back at other precedent and saying, okay, well, how did they handle that? And how did they handle this in the year 2000 and so on? And then you use that as guidance for how the rules are going to be implemented here and now. So I think they do have a combination of both. They've got some written rules and some written procedures, and then they're also using sort of prior experience to decide how to conduct their business in the Congress. Thanks, Aaron. We have Chucky BTV says, Elon Musk needs to make phones next. He's onto the satellite internet already and start the next internet platform for conservatives. P.S. He called out the COVID tests also. I think Elon is a phenomenon, and that's a pretty cool thing that we have Elon here in this country, and he's doing everything that he's doing. He is, I just saw a headline today that he was going to be donating $100 million to carbon cleaning, whatever. He's going to do this new project where, what's it called? Carbon cleansing, carbon capturing, I think it was. Carbon capturing $100 million as a project, sort of as a prize. Whoever can come up with the best design for carbon capture, they get it, right? There you go. So Elon's going to solve climate change for us. It's not going to be Al Gore. It's not going to be the federal government. It's not going to be the Paris agreements. It's not going to be any of this CFL light bulbs. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be Teslas, superchargers, carbon capture devices. And Elon's going to do it. And if he doesn't, that's all right, because he'll develop the next spaceship. We'll just go on over to Mars. We've got Joseph Coles. Hey, Rob, Faith, and Ma. Been listening on a while now, starting my own podcast on locals called Joe's World. Average Joe talking about cultural, political, and everything in between. Come check it out. Thanks. So there you go, folks. So go check out Joseph Coles. Joseph Coles left a very, very nice message today, and I want to support him for supporting us. So go over to locals, check out our page. Joseph, if you want to post a link to your locals there, please do. Just throw it in there. Promote it. Go over, check out Joe's World. Average Joe talking about cultural, political, and everything in between. Joe, I'll listen to it, and if it sounds like it's something that fits, maybe I'll come and be a guest on there. All right. I really appreciate what you're doing. I think more people should be speaking out and being vocal about some of this stuff, and I want to support it. So there you have it. Thanks, Joseph. We have Kenneth Slayer says, there are too many crimes that are felonies and no rights should be lost. All rights should be returned once the time is done. Yeah, that's a good point there, Kenneth. This is one of those things, that person has paid their debt. They've been to prison. They've paid probation. They've paid their fines. They've successfully completed parole, whatever the consequences were. Why don't we make it pretty easy to restore their rights? Rather than making this a lifelong sentence, a forever eternal punishment for the rest of your life. Doesn't seem right to me either. We have Turd Ferguson says, Biden, I am the Democratic Party right now, 9/29/20. So he can be, whoa, this is brilliant. So he can be impeached for any act by Democrats that he does not rebuke and disavow #impeachment party. Biden said on September 29th, according to very reliable Turd Ferguson, I am the Democratic Party right now, which sounds right. So if anybody said anything and there was any violence associated with a Democratic political operative who said something that caused, who incited a ruckus around this country, boom, you got Joe to the politician to the violence. Easy. 1, 2, 3, connect the chain. He's impeached according to their own standards. I didn't write the standards. Turd didn't write the standards. The Democrats did. Ted Lieu did. Wolfgang Deo says the residence part of the White House is still federal property. No one is above the law, but looks like we are all below it. Sleeping? Wear the mask. So Wolfgang's aggressive on the masks. Okay, I was going to give an executive order exemption when they're in the residence. But he's right. It's federal property. I didn't see an exemption in the executive order. He's the president. He passed the laws. He should be held account. Kim Jepson says frontline doctors were blocked on SM for opposing methodology of the PCR test. Never in history has a test been used to confirm a diagnosis. There you go. Okay, I don't know Kim Jepson, but sounds like she knows what she's talking about. So there you go. One more time. Frontline doctors were blocked on SM for opposing the methodology of the PCR test. Never in history has a test been used to confirm a diagnosis. All right, there you go. Thank you for that, Kim. Appreciate it. We got Seiji Takahari says, why do you elect lawmakers and then have the lawmakers outsource the making of the law to others that are not elected? Well, because, my friend Seiji, this is America, okay? We outsource everything here. Everything. And if we can outsource it to China, that's fine. They can do it cheaper and faster anyways. Nobody really cares about what happens in this country. And China, we're kind of outsourcing our laws over to them too, aren't we? I mean, there are a lot of kind of very close connections there between old Joe and the Chinese. So, well, maybe they are writing our laws. Maybe they'll write our laws for us however they want them. Thanks, Seji. Lava Java Lava says, I will fill your canteen if you're sent to jail for making baseless claims on YouTube. I know. Are we making baseless claims? I'm trying not to make any baseless claims here. I'm trying to play by the rules. We're doing our best. We already got canceled on Discord. I'm doing my best not to lose it here. We have SSW Lamb says, I followed you on Locals. The platform looks good. I saw a story that a supermarket changing its gingerbread man to biscuits to gingerbread person. It's crazy. Wow. Okay. Gingerbread man. It's problematic now. It's gingerbread person. Listen, I'm ahead of the curve on this thing. All right. I've been calling them Congress people for like a week now. All right. At least a week, maybe 2 weeks. I don't even remember. I was typing this show description and I thought Congresswoman. Oh, red alert. You can't say that anymore. I don't want to presume that. So I went back and said Congressperson. I'm very PC here, folks. Very woke. Thanks, SSW Lamb. We have Beth Coddington says, you're worth it, just letting you know. So she went ahead and coughed up that money. Thanks, Beth. You're such a sweetheart. I appreciate the support. And thanks for getting us over there on Locals. I'm going to look into it. I don't know what's going on over there, but we'll figure it out. We have Walter Woodland says, the election litigation stuff would be inconsequential if the 2020 general election were the last election we'll have in the U.S. The election litigation would be inconsequential if it were the last election stuff we'll have in the U.S. So that's a good point there, Walter. You know, I think when I said inconsequential, I meant inconsequential for the 2020 election. You are of course right that some of this litigation will result in rulings that will be applicable to the next election. And when we have something like that, when we have a closure, you know, some indication about where some of this stuff is settling, then I will be happy to talk about it. Thanks for pointing that out. I don't disagree with you even a little bit. We have Renee Markov says, please don't stop covering the election. Millions of Americans want to know how Sleepy Joe got to be president and how to change election laws so it can't happen again. Well, we'll continue to talk about the election stuff, Renee. It's I would say more of the post-election stuff, right? I really cannot. I mean, I know you don't like to hear this, but I really cannot talk about any of the other stuff. YouTube has told us that specifically multiple times. We're already in sort of this little bubble that they've created around us. So I can't dig into anything that would ultimately lead to an allegation of fraud. I just can't do it. And I know people don't like that, and I know they want me to, but I can't. I mean, we would literally lose the whole show, lose the whole channel on YouTube, and I'm just not willing to do that. So if I have to be a little bit careful about some of this stuff, I will. We're going to try to also develop some other platforms like Locals that are a little bit more open and free speech. And so I just want to encourage you to just stick with me a little bit, all right? We're still in the first inning of this game and we've got a long road ahead of us. So I know that, you know, many people want a very aggressive approach and sort of a, firebrand, go. I can't do it. I just can't do it right now. I wish I could. I wish I could, cover anything that I wanted, but we're not in that world. We're just not. The reality around us is not open to that. It's a scary thing. I agree with you. I totally am concerned about it, but we got to operate in this playground for now. At a later date, maybe a year from now, there is a legitimate competitor to YouTube, a legitimate competitor to Twitter, and we can all just say to hell with this censorship stuff. Let's just bail. But we're not there yet. We're going to get there, but we're not there yet. So we're going to do our best, Renee. I appreciate your thoughts and your support, and I do hope you stick around with us in the meantime. We have Chris Wolney says political money needs conflict of interest regulation. Well, it needs a lot. I mean, did you see that there was that other senator who was, what's his name? Burr, Senator Burr, I think he's still in the Senate. He just got cleared by the government, right? The government investigates the government and they find that there's nothing wrong. Same thing that happens with the cops. The police investigate the police and find they did nothing wrong. And so government's doing that. Senators all do insider trading. They all get secret reports and they all go and they just, shovel money around and they get very rich off of it. And nobody does anything because what are they going to do? Investigate themselves? Pass laws that make it difficult for themselves? Of course not. They're not going to do that. And our last one of the day before we sign off is from the Wolfgang Deo, who is saying, of course, all hail Supreme Leader Biden and Kamala. There you go, my friends. Busy show. We covered a lot in there today. I want to thank you so much for being with us. Before we sign off, a couple quick things. These slides are going to be available over on Locals. So once again, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Head on over there. Beth Coddington just informed us that you have to make a donation or something like that in order to post. I'm going to see what I can do about that. I'm not sure if there is an option on that or whatever, but I apologize if it's operating in a way that is different than how I say it's operating. I apologize for that. We're still trying to figure it out, and we'll get it up to speed here shortly. So head on over to Locals. You can get a copy of my book. It's in there. It's called Beginning to Winning: How to Fight Your Case and Succeed in the Criminal Justice System, written by yours truly. There's a free PDF in there. You can also buy a copy on Amazon. I was talking about my existence system. That is also over there with those 4 agreements right there that you want if you're studying for law school. Be impeccable with your word. We've also got, what else is in there? The impeachment slides, the impeachment template in there. There's a lot of good stuff, but most importantly, there's other good people. There's people who watch the show before and after, chatting, sharing messages. Looks like Joseph Coles said, would love to have you on, Rob. Will be a great conversation. My first podcast was up this weekend. Joseph Coles is over there on Locals, so check him out. There's some other guys. Viva Phrase on there. Scott Adams is on there. And they're coming out with, I think, live streaming this year is what they said. And they're also talking about sort of a global package, so you don't have to subscribe to individual content creators. You can just get a package and get everybody. So I don't know what it looks like yet, but I am excited that it is a little bit more sort of free speechy than a lot of these other platforms, and I'm going to be spending more time over there. So go check Locals out. That is, I think, everything. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, would appreciate a subscribe here, would really appreciate a thumbs up, a nice comment. That does sort of help the video get outside of the YouTube bubble that they put us in. We're still in the penalty box for some period of time. So that would be very helpful. I would love it even more, though, if you invited somebody, sent it to a friend, sent it to a colleague, invite him to come join us or to watch it after the fact. And let's hit this last super chat that just came in. Scott Jensen, a senator and doctor in Minnesota, is requesting COVID death count audit. Says death count is 40 to 50% lower. The CDC changed how deaths were recorded. So I support that. I would love to see some sort of independent analysis on these numbers, because it felt to me prior to this election like it was a scoreboard and they were doing everything they could to run that number up. Now that Trump's out of office, I'm going to guess that those numbers and how they count that, how the metrics are accumulated and counted, going to guess that changes pretty dramatically, and we start to see a miraculous recovery. So we'll be curious to see where that goes. But that's it for me, my friends. Before I sign off, I want to remind you that I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Arizona. We handle all sorts of criminal charges throughout the entire state. So if you've been charged with a crime, if you know anybody who's been charged with a crime, if you had an old criminal record, something you want to clear up, we can help with all of that stuff. We're very good at what we do. We're passionate about it. Our mission is to help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases, and then beyond that, in their lives. We're very good at it. We offer free case evaluation. So if you know anybody who needs any help, we would be honored and humbled if you sent them our direction so that we could lend a hand. Other than that, we're done for the day, my guys, my friends, my ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. I want to invite you to be a part of the show. It is going to be at 5 p.m. Arizona time. It's going to be 4 p.m. California over on the West Coast, 6 p.m. in Central in Texas, and 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Everybody have a very wonderful evening. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow. Sleep well. Bye-bye.